5 years ago, the tyrannical rule of the Arcadia Empire, which had lasted for centuries, was finally overthrown in a coup led by a mysterious black machine dragon. To this day, the identity of the knight who piloted that dragon remains unknown. People continue to talk about the knight and refer to him as the Black Hero. After the fall of Arcadia, the kingdom was renamed the New Kingdom of Atismata. One night, Lux, the seventh prince of the now-defunct Arcadia Empire, was chasing a cat across the rooftops of the New Kingdom's royal castle. Unexpectedly, the roof beneath him collapsed, and he ended up crashing straight into the royal bath, landing right on top of Lisha, the princess of Atismata. Lux had no idea how things had gone so wrong. Lisha immediately covered herself and accused him of being a pervert. Clearly furious, she demanded to know what his last words were going to be before he died. Lux panicked, scrambling to think of something to say. Then he remembered a piece of advice from an old man he once worked with. Women appreciate compliments. So Lux told her that she was cute, had a great figure, and was very attractive. Lisha turned bright red with embarrassment, while everyone around them screamed in shock. Lux was horrified at how things had spiraled so quickly. He tried to explain that he had not meant it that way, but before he could say anything else, Lisha struck him hard. Lux was immediately taken into custody. He felt incredibly unlucky, especially since he still had work to do that day. He shouted that the whole thing was just a misunderstanding, apologized, and explained that he had fallen from the roof. When another girl arrived, Lux quickly tried to explain himself. He said that a girl's purse had been stolen by a cat, and he had been chasing it across the rooftops to get it back. He had no idea it would lead to this. Cruelchifer, one of the girls nearby, asked if the sword device lying nearby belonged to him. She noted that it was rare to see someone carrying two swords at once, especially a black one like that. Not long after, another girl named Chalice appeared and asked what Cruelchifer was doing there. Cruelchifer casually replied that she had just come to see the adorable little peeping Tom. Chalice then told Lux that the headmistress wanted to see him. Chalice and Tilfer brought Lux to the academy's headmistress. On the way there, Tilfer mocked Lux, saying he must have guts to go around groping girls while the third-year knights were away. It turned out that the place Lux had stumbled into was the Royal Drag Knight Academy. When Lux explained the situation to the headmistress, Relie, she admitted that she already knew who he was, a former prince of the old Arcadia Empire. Relie vouched for Lux, saying she had known him for a long time and believed he would never do something like that on purpose. Lux knew the academy trained drag knights under the rule of the New Kingdom of Atismata. Relie explained that ever since the coup 5 years ago, the kingdom had put everything it had into training drag knights to ensure their strength could rival other nations. The academy's mission was to train young girls who were believed to have more potential as drag knights than boys. Relie then asked Lux to work at the academy. Both Tilfer and Chalice were stunned. Lux too was confused about why she would want him there, especially as a boy. Relie explained that ever since the coup, male drag knights had become extremely rare. Someone like Lux was now valuable. She also believed that the two swords he carried were not just for show. Of course, Tilfer and Chalice were not immediately convinced. Then Lisha entered with a group of other girls. She made it clear that she disagreed with the idea of letting a boy, especially a shameless one like Lux, work at the academy. Lux realized that Lisha was the same girl from the bath earlier. Tilfer warned Lisha to keep her distance from him, and Chalice told the others to stay away as well. In the end, Relie handed the decision about Lux's punishment over to Lisha. She challenged him to a duel and said she would determine whether or not he was worthy of being a drag knight at the academy. The other girls seemed intrigued by the challenge. Relie added that Lux had won a prize from a royal tournament in the city and was still undefeated. His nickname was the Undefeated Weakest. Lisha was shocked that someone she saw as a pervert could be undefeated, and the more she learned about him, the less she liked him. Lisha pointed her sword at him and declared that it would be a one-on-one battle using their drag rides. If Lux lost, he would be imprisoned and treated as a criminal, but if he won, he would be pardoned and allowed to work at the academy. Lisha asked her friends to announce that there would be a duel between the new princess of the Atismata Kingdom and the former prince of the old Arcadia Empire. Lux was stunned to find out that Lisha was actually a princess. She then revealed that she was the first queen of the Atismata Kingdom, the very one that had destroyed the Arcadia Empire 5 years ago. Shortly after, Aerie, Lux's younger sister, arrived with a friend to meet him. Aerie couldn't believe what Lux had done. Lux apologized for causing a commotion at Aerie's school and asked why her friend wouldn't sit down. Aerie's friend said she had heard that if she got too close, Lux could lift her skirt just by breathing. Lux was shocked to hear that. Aerie introduced her roommate, whose name was Noct. Noct didn't expect that Aerie's older brother was the kind of guy who gave off such a sketchy vibe. Lux insisted that it was all just a misunderstanding. Aerie looked troubled, wondering what she would do if Lux were arrested. Ever since the coup, they had been treated as criminals just for being survivors of the royal family. The debt they carried as part of their pardon was too much for Aerie to handle on her own. She urged Lux to make sure he worked properly as a volunteer. Lux told her he had been doing his best, but Noct brought up how his efforts had apparently ended with him barging into the girls' bathroom and causing a scene. Aerie felt overwhelmed at the thought of her brother ending up in jail. Lux apologized again. No matter what, Aerie wanted Lux to win against Lisha. Noct pointed out that Lisha was unbeatable at the academy, but to Aerie that made her a worthy opponent for Lux. The day of the match finally came. Students gathered in the stadium to witness the battle between Lisha, the first queen of the Atismata Kingdom, and Lux, a seventh prince of the former Arcadia Empire. Lux and Lisha faced off in the arena. Lisha asked if Lux knew why she had challenged him to a fight. Lux assumed it was because he was a prince from Arcadia. She told him she would reveal the reason if he managed to win. Both of them activated their drag rides. Lisha mocked Lux's drag ride, which turned out to be an ordinary wyvern. Her own drag ride, in contrast, was a powerful high-level unit named Tiamat. According to her, there was a huge difference between his and hers. Aerie, watching from the stands, was amazed. High-level drag rides rarely use ancient weapons, which were incredibly powerful and could only be controlled by strong individuals. The difference between Lisha's Tiamat and Lux's wyvern was clearly massive. The match began. Lisha opened with a barrage of shots aimed at Lux, and he tried to dodge them. She easily landed a hit. Before continuing, Lux made a request. If the match ended in a draw, he hoped they could settle things through negotiation. He also apologized for what had happened in the bathroom. Hearing that, Lisha called him unbelievably stupid, which only made her angrier. Immediately after, Lisha activated her special weapon, 7 heads. Chalice was surprised that she would go that far. Tilfer questioned whether it was safe to use such dangerous weaponry with students so close to the battlefield. Before launching her attack, Lisha suggested that Lux stop using that wyvern and switch to his other sword device. Unfortunately, Lux did not want to use that sword. Lisha began her attacks and Lux kept dodging. It turned out that Lisha's attacks were strong enough to damage the arena's protective barrier. Lux started to worry that if one of those attacks hit him, it might actually kill him. The match announcer requested for the barrier to be repaired, and Rayleigh wondered whether Lux and Lisha were thinking about the safety of the audience at all. According to Noct, if things kept going like that, Lux could be in serious danger. Aerie pointed out that it was Lux's own doing, but even so, she said there was one thing that could always be said about him. Once Lux made up his mind, he would always follow through. Meanwhile, Lisha thought that if the fight dragged on, time might run out and the match would end in a draw. She began to suspect that this was the reason Lux was called the undefeated weakest. Lisha had no choice but to use the Tiamat's highest special move, Spray Shot. That attack brought Lux down and destroyed the surrounding area of the arena. This special move was a rare ability only possessed by high-grade drag rides, and Tiamat's unique trait was the power to manipulate gravity. However, using it together with a special weapon could cause Lisha to lose control. Thinking the battle was over, Lisha believed she had finally defeated Lux, but suddenly, her body froze and she couldn't move. Lux asked her to leave her drag ride. Lisha refused to give up just because of that. She still wanted to fight and defeat him, but right then the arena's protective barrier disappeared. At that moment, an abyss appeared. A monster that was only supposed to show up at the ruins. Aerie was shocked and questioned why there was an abyss there at all. The information center immediately called for instructors to bring the triads and evacuate all the students into the school. Chalice and Tilfer tried to calm the students and urge them to take shelter inside. The command center instructed all wyverns to form a protective shield around the gargoyle and defend the students. Hearing this, Lisha was confused and didn't understand what was going on. The Abyss's attack managed to break through the barrier and Lux rushed in to strike back. He asked Lisha for one favor. Meanwhile, Chalice scolded Aerie and Noct for still being outside when they should have already taken shelter. Tilfer also called out Noct, especially since she was a Triad member, for standing around doing nothing. Noct explained that Lux was Aerie's older brother. At that time, Lux was still fighting the Abyss. Tilfer was surprised that he was willing to take on such a powerful enemy using only a standard drag ride. Chalice advised Aerie not to interfere and just wait until the instructors arrived, but Aerie believed that since there was only one enemy, Lux would lose. Lisha had already stepped back by then and felt relieved that Tiamat had calmed down. It turned out that Lux's request was for her to come down and help target the enemy. Lisha was annoyed and asked if Lux was trying to give her orders, but Lux explained that he would give her the signal to fire, and that signal would be when he raised his sword above his head. Lisha didn't know what Lux was planning to do with that broken sword, but she knew her 7 heads cannon had only one shot left. She couldn't believe she was about to use it, all to support someone like Lux, a so-called useless prince. Lux kept dodging the abyss while occasionally firing at it. The command center asked Lux to hold on, saying help was on the way. After that, Lux raised his sword as a signal, but the abyss immediately broke it. Lisha then fired the 7 heads cannon at the abyss and successfully landed a hit. After the shot, Lisha mentioned that if a defensive maneuver could open up a window of opportunity for attack, then she could unleash her full strength. And that was the basic strategy for fighting monsters. She quickly rushed over to Lux, who had collapsed. Later that afternoon, Lisha was soaking in the bath replaying everything that had happened. She started to suspect that Lux had intentionally made himself the target to give her a chance. And it was the first time a guy had ever tried to help or protect her. At that moment, Lux was lying weakly in bed. He dreamed of someone asking whether his wyvern would fight alongside the other person's Bahamut or against it. The dream woke him up immediately. Right then, he saw Lisha walk in and ask how he was doing. Lux asked if she had come to take care of him. Lisha put down the glass of water she brought and said that she came because Lux had saved her. Lisha could no longer tell whether Lux was genuinely humble or just acting arrogantly. She also wondered if everyone in the Arcadia Kingdom behaved like that. Lux himself wasn't quite sure anymore. He had been forced out of the kingdom since he was a child. Lisha was puzzled by how Lux could be willing to fight an abyss with just a regular drag ride. That wasn't something ordinary people did. Lux admitted he didn't really remember all the details. He just felt like he had no other choice back then. Lisha thanked him for protecting everyone, and Lux responded by calling her a generous princess. Lisha proudly said that she did consider herself to be a fair and generous one. They both laughed. Lisha confessed that she now completely trusted Lux, and Lux felt relieved hearing that. Then Lisha revealed the real reason she had challenged Lux to a duel. It was because she couldn't just let him walk away after seeing her body. Lux admitted that he had seen everything and thought it was beautiful. Lisha scolded him and called him a pervert, though what she was actually referring to was the mark below her stomach. It turned out to be the emblem of the Arcadia Kingdom, and Lux was surprised to find that he had the same mark. Lisha wasn't ready to explain why yet, but she asked Lux not to tell anyone about it. Lux promised he wouldn't. Lisha then asked why Lux was so stubborn about not using his black sword device. Lux couldn't give her an answer, and Lisha understood. If they both had secrets, then it was only fair. She told him that starting tomorrow, Lux would officially be a part of the academy. The previous order from the headmistress had been revoked, and Lux would now be attending as a student knight of the royal family. Lux was shocked to hear that and didn't quite understand how it all happened. Before leaving, Lisha asked Lux to start calling her by her name, just like the others did. Unbeknownst to them, their conversation had been overheard by Crucifer. That day marked Lux's official enrollment in the academy. He introduced himself in front of the class and greeted his classmates. As he looked for an empty seat, the other students began whispering about him. They couldn't believe the school had allowed a male student to enroll. Lux felt uneasy and wanted to leave as soon as possible, until a girl suddenly called out to him. Her name was Filthy, and she knew Lux. He was shocked since they hadn't seen each other in 7 years. The teacher asked if Filthy was someone Lux knew. He replied that she was his childhood friend. The teacher then allowed him to sit next to Filthy, but that seemed to upset Lai a bit. The teacher began the lesson and asked everyone to turn to page 27 in their textbooks. Lux quietly asked Filthy if he could look at her book. Filthy said he could, but only if he called her Fi-Chen, just like how she called him Lu Chan. Back when they were kids, Lux used to call her that, but now he felt embarrassed. The other students found the exchange cute and teased them for their special nicknames. Blushing, Lux called her Fi-Chen and borrowed her book. Filthy happily handed it over. Lisha looked increasingly annoyed at how close they seemed. During the break, a few students approached Lux and asked if it was true that he worked as a volunteer. Lux replied that it was simply part of his duty. More students began crowding around, eager to ask questions. To calm the chaos, Tilfer stepped in and told everyone to write down their questions and place them in a question box. Not long after, Lisha approached Lux with a surprising request. She wanted him to become her personal assistant. The entire class was shocked. They wondered what exactly a personal assistant would do and why someone like Lisha would ask a guy like Lux. Lisha casually mentioned that it shouldn't be a big deal, especially since Lux had already seen her naked once. Filthy quickly spoke up, saying that Lux was clearly uncomfortable around Lisha. Knowing that Filthy was the daughter of Aingram Industries, Lisha tried to win her over by offering her a donut and asking her to back off. But even after taking a bite, Filthy remained firm. Lux was still uncomfortable with Lisha's behavior. Just then, Crucifer entered the classroom and asked Lux to come with her, saying it was a request from Relie. She led Lux outside and he thanked her, realizing she had deliberately stepped in to help him out. Curious, he asked why she was helping him. Khun Chifer then asked if Lux had ever heard of the Black Hero, the Drag Knight who single-handedly destroyed the Arcadia Empire. To this day, no one knew the hero's true identity. She said she had a personal reason for needing Lux to find that mysterious person. That night, Lux had a dream about his past. He remembered Fuil speaking about human experimentation within the Empire and about the girl who had been his childhood friend. Fuil had said that they might need to eliminate everyone involved, but Lux had wanted to minimize the casualties. He woke up suddenly from the dream, only to realize his hand had landed on something soft. He jumped up in panic after realizing he had accidentally touched Filthy's chest. Filthy also woke up and greeted him casually. Lux was confused and had no idea why they were sleeping in the same bed. Filthy explained that this was her room, and that it had simply been a long time since they last slept together like when they were kids. Looking extremely flustered, Lux asked her to please put her clothes on. At that moment, Tilfer came to wake Lux up and opened the door to find them together. Embarrassed, she quickly apologized for the intrusion. Lux shouted that it was just a misunderstanding. Still, Tilfer wasted no time and spread the news to the rest of the academy. At breakfast, Ayuri, who came with Macht, met her older brother. She was stunned to hear that Lux had actually stayed overnight in his childhood friend's room. Lux tried to explain that he had simply gone to sleep in his own assigned room and didn't realize Filthy was his roommate. Ayuri was shocked, and Lux admitted he had spoken to Relie, the academy's headmaster, about it, but apparently there were no other vacant rooms left. Relie, who was also Filthy's older sister, had asked Lux to look after her. Even though the arrangement had Relie's approval, Lux was worried it might lead to misunderstandings, especially since rumors had already started spreading. He hadn't expected things to turn out this way. After hearing his explanation, Ayuri quickly left, even though Lux had hoped they could have breakfast together. Ayuri turned him down, saying that if they ate together, they'd probably end up wanting to spend even more time with each other. Ayuri hoped that Lux would be more careful about what they had talked about earlier. That afternoon, Lux visited the workshop and announced that he was there to accept the job he had been given. He found Lisha asleep on the floor. She said she was the one who had written the job request. When Lux asked where the workshop manager was, he was surprised to find out that Lisha herself was the manager. She showed Lux that she had finished preparing his wyvern. He didn't expect that she would be the one fixing it. Lisha explained that she had done it because Lux was part of the Royal Knights, a special unit made up of selected students. She recognized that Lux's skills as a drag knight were enough to join, and for the sake of the kingdom of Atismata, she hoped Lux would support them as well. Lux agreed to help however he could. Lisha told him that he would officially become a member after Class 3 and upon returning from the induction ceremony. She then invited Lux to go for a walk. According to her, to form a strong team as Royal Knights, they needed to understand each other better. So she brought Lux to a famous restaurant in the city. Lux felt he didn't belong in such a fancy place, but unexpectedly, Lisha had forgotten her wallet. In the end, Lux treated her to some snacks and invited her to sit by the pond. Lisha apologized even though she had been the one who asked Lux to accompany her. Lux encouraged her to eat the snack while it was still warm. The food turned out to be really good, but suddenly Lisha started feeling uneasy being there. Lux asked if she was alright. She admitted that she just needed a short rest. Lux then suggested a nice, quiet place to relax. He brought Lisha to the highest spot in the area just beneath the bell tower. She immediately liked the peaceful atmosphere. Lux knew about the place because he used to clean it as a volunteer, and ever since, he had grown fond of it. He praised Lisha for being able to fix a drag ride on her own. In his eyes, her technical skills were beyond that of a typical drag knight, more like a queen, even. Hearing that, Lisha walked toward the edge of the platform. Lux quickly stopped her, saying it was too dangerous. She then asked what being a queen meant to him and wanted him to tell her how someone could become a proper queen. Lisha also asked if Lux remembered the crest of the Arcadia Empire on her stomach. She revealed that 5 years ago she was taken hostage by the Arcadia Empire as leverage against her father, who had been involved in a coup. Even so, the coup went on without any attempt to negotiate for her release. Lisha felt abandoned. That crest was proof she had once been a prisoner of the old empire. While she was in prison, she had desperately hoped her father would come save her. What she truly wanted was for him to choose her over the country, but that never happened, and it broke her heart. She couldn't even bring herself to end her own life. So instead, she decided to devote herself to becoming someone worthy of serving the kingdom. She believed she wasn't fit to be a queen. But after her father died, she became the only surviving member of the Atismata royal family. Because of that, she had no choice but to take on the role of queen while continuing to hide the mark of Arcadia on her body. Lisha was sure that Lux must have also felt pain over losing his royal titles as a prince of Arcadia. That night, Lux couldn't stop thinking. He felt powerless, like someone who could no longer do anything a prince should be able to do. In his sleep, he dreamed of the past. Of the moment, he felt devastated by Fu Weil's actions. Lux had pleaded with Fu Weil to limit the casualties, but in the end, Fu Weil had killed everyone. It turned out everything had been planned from the start. Fu Weil laughed and said that thanks to Lux, they had survived. In his view, if he hadn't eliminated everyone, they would have eventually killed him. He claimed that Lux didn't understand anything, and that such weakness had no place in a king. In Fu Weil's eyes, Lux was the weakest of all. Lux woke up in shock just as the large bell started ringing. He had no idea what was happening. The next morning, a teacher gathered the trained students to inform them that an abyss had appeared in the southwest ruins earlier that morning. The Drag Knights from the Royal Security Forces had already been dispatched to intercept it. The students were told to prepare in case they were needed and to await further orders. Lux met up with Aerie and found that the students were already gathering. Lisha also stopped by to say goodbye. She had to leave because duty called. As a royal knight, she needed to be ready for danger at any time. Lux reminded everyone to stay alert. Lisha commented that they were all strong, and with that, they quickly left. Lux and Aerie couldn't join them since they were still students. After everyone had gone, Aerie asked Lux if something was bothering him. Lux admitted he hadn't expected the abyss to appear so soon. Meanwhile, the drag rides had already surrounded the abyss. Lisha gave the signal to attack together, but suddenly, a sound was heard. Not long after, the abyss exploded. At that moment, Filthy, who was with Lux, mentioned that she could hear a whistle just before the explosion. The abyss burst open and released a huge swarm of gargoyles. It turned out the mastermind behind the scene was the commander leading the troops from the royal capital. It was Regrid, the captain of the guard, and a knight from the Arcadia Kingdom. Lisha was shocked to find out that Regrid had betrayed the Atismata Kingdom. Regrid confessed that all he wanted was to restore what he believed to be justice. The gargoyles began attacking Lisha and her allies following Regrid's command. Lisha immediately used her 7 heads weapon to fire at them, but unfortunately, she got hit in the process. Noct quickly returned to the school and reported that the situation was critical. Aerie then asked Lux if he planned to go. Lux wanted to help Lisha and the others, but Aerie was worried. She pointed out that Lux couldn't defeat the abyss using only the wyvern, and he also wasn't allowed to use his black sword. From her perspective, there was nothing Lux could really do at that moment. Still, Lux asked Aerie not to worry about him. He said everything would be fine and promised he wouldn't leave her alone. Before heading out, Lux asked Crucifer to protect the school in his absence. Meanwhile, Lisha was still fighting off the gargoyles. She asked if Chalice and Tilfer were okay. Unfortunately, Chalice said they had to retreat as they were no longer in condition to fight. Lisha realized she needed to target the man holding the whistle, convinced that it was the key to controlling the abyss. Regrid mocked her, calling her a disgrace as a so-called princess who blindly obeyed the orders of a man. He even suggested that it would be better for her to just sit quietly in a prison cell. Lisha refused to back down and fired back, saying Regrid was even more pathetic for being the kind of man who would talk like that only when he had the upper hand. Regrid blew the whistle again, prompting the gargoyles to attack Lisha. She tried to dodge and counterattack, but she was struck once more. Then she turned her attention to Regrid and launched an attack directly at him, which finally exposed him as a rebel to everyone around. Regrid struck back, knocking Lisha down. Rebel forces from the former kingdom began to arrive. At that moment, Lux contacted Lisha, urging her to stay conscious, but she expressed how powerless she felt, admitting that she had never been able to do anything that made her feel like a true queen. Even pretending to be a princess had been painful. Still, she said that this time she wanted to prove herself. Regrid approached her, saying he would remind her who she truly belonged to. He forcefully exposed the mark on her lower abdomen. Laughing, he declared that he was the one who had placed that mark there. Lisha's memories from the past came flooding back. Enraged, she threw her sword at Regrid and the blade cut his cheek. Infuriated, Regrid prepared to strike her down. But just in time, Lux arrived and blocked the attack. Lux admitted that he had failed to protect people as a prince and had felt powerless. But this time, he wanted to stand by Lisha's side and help her. He wanted the world to recognize her as the rightful queen of the Atismata Kingdom. Regrid severed the wyvern's arm. He didn't know Lux and underestimated him from the start. Lux immediately activated his black sword to summon Bahamut. Regrid was stunned to realize that the drag he had to face was a special black one. He never expected Lux to possess such a thing, neither did Lisha. At that moment, Aerie noticed that Lux had finally used the black sword. It was then that Crucifer realized the truth. Lux was the black hero. Lux fought against multiple gargoyles, dodging every attack with incredible speed and taking them down in an instant. It was said that during the coup 5 years ago, nearly 1,200 drags owned by the royal army had been destroyed by a single drag knight. Agreed finally understood who stood before him. It was Lux, the seventh prince of the Arcadia Empire. He couldn't comprehend why Lux had survived when the rest of the royal family had perished, and more importantly, why a royal prince was now standing in his way. Confused and frustrated, he asked if Lux intended to become some kind of hero. Without giving a reply, Lux launched an attack and blew Regret away right then and there. Aerie knew the truth about her older brother. He wasn't a hero. He was the one who had destroyed the Arcadia Empire. He was the Drag Knight, often referred to as the weakest undefeated. The next day, Aerie informed Lux that they had been summoned by the principal. She urged her older brother to hurry up since everyone was already waiting. As they opened the door, all the students greeted Lux enthusiastically. It turned out that they had secretly prepared a welcome party just for him. Chalice mentioned that the party might not be extravagant enough for a former prince like Lux, but she welcomed him to enjoy it nonetheless. Tilfer said that everyone had helped cook the food, though she warned Lux not to expect too much from her cooking. Lisha approached Lux and admitted that she was not fond of parties like this and hoped it would end soon, but she also acknowledged that the party had a meaningful purpose. Not clarified that what Lisha meant was that they wanted to thank Lux and hoped he would enjoy the food, even if it was just a little. Lisha immediately blushed and scolded Noct. Filthy came over to congratulate Lux as well. Lisha scolded her for eating before Lux had tasted anything, even calling her a glutton. In response, Filthy quickly offered a sandwich to Lux, which only made Lisha even more irritated. Relief stepped in and suggested that everyone raise their glasses to celebrate the occasion. After the toast, they all began enjoying the food. Everyone seemed to be having a great time, but not all of the students were happy about Lux's presence. Some of them questioned why people were so quick to forgive him, and Cruel Chiefur overheard their complaints. At that moment, Riley announced that she wanted to make the party even more exciting by introducing a special competition. She presented a letter that, if captured, would grant the winner exclusive access to Lux for an entire week. If someone managed to take the letter before time ran out, they would get to have Lux for a full week. The crowd erupted in excitement. Lux asked if Riley was just joking, but she explained that it was a special request letter. If Lux could successfully hide it until the time limit expired, he would not have to follow anyone's demands. The game would last for 1 hour. Hearing that, Lux immediately took off running while the students chased after him, all eager to win the challenge. He hid in the workshop while others scattered throughout the building, calling out and trying to track him down. Lux could only dare to peek from his hiding spot and had no idea what the others might do if he got caught. Suddenly, Lisha appeared behind him and said he could stay hidden there for a while. Lux thanked her sincerely. Lisha then asked him about the Black Hero. Hearing that, Lux looked anxious. She assured him that everyone who knew his identity would keep it secret. She explained that she wanted to learn more about the special abilities of the drag ride Bahamut as part of her research. Lux shared that when he used Reload on fire, he could temporarily boost his speed and power using that ability. Without warning, Lisha caught Lux using her Tiamat. She had suspected that Lux would be too kind-hearted to resist. Lux asked her to let him go and promised to give her the special request letter in return. But as soon as she released him, Lux dashed away. Lisha called him unfair, but Lux teased that it was no different from what she tried to do. She pouted, clearly frustrated. Lux hid in a bush next. He was more alert now and knew he could not afford to let his guard down. Suddenly, Filthy appeared right behind him and called out his name, startling him. Lux asked what she was doing there. Filthy explained that Riley had promised her cake if she found Lux, so she was determined to succeed, but she also promised to be gentle so Lux would not get hurt. Filthy then grabbed Lux's hand tightly, holding him in place so firmly that he could not even move. Apparently, she had learned a bit of martial arts. This way, she could enjoy the cake with Lux. Her chest pressed up against his back, which made Lux blush. In the confusion, he accidentally dropped the special request letter. Filthy quickly reached for it, but Lux snatched it back and made a run for it again. Eventually, Lux slipped into a room and hid behind a bookshelf. The game only had 10 minutes left. Unexpectedly, some of his friends also entered the same room. It turned out they were about to test the drag machine that had just been repaired. Lux had no idea the room he walked into was the changing room, and he was completely unsure of what to do. The girls began changing clothes together. One of them asked if they weren't worried that Lux might try to peek or touch them. Tilfer mentioned that Lux had done something like that in the bathroom before, so they should be cautious. However, according to Chalice, the situation back then was different, and it didn't seem like Lux would do something like that again. Noct added that anyone who had seen how he fought would know Lux was someone trustworthy. Hearing all this made Lux feel deeply guilty. At that moment, Tilfer asked where the drag manual was. Cruel Chief quickly started looking for it on the shelf, and as she stood right in front of Lux, she was startled. Lux, already terrified, braced himself for the scolding he thought was coming. But to his surprise, Cruel Chief didn't say a word to the others about Lux being there. Instead, she calmly said that she would skip practice that day, pretending to have something else she needed to take care of. Once everyone else had left, Cruel Chief told Lux it was safe now. She reminded him that he should be more careful about doing certain things. Then she mentioned that Lux probably didn't need to hide anymore since the bell signal in the end of the game had already rung. She asked if he had lost his special request letter, because if someone took it, he might lose his smile. She then asked Lux to show the letter to her. Without thinking much of it, Lux handed over the letter. Suddenly, the sound of a bell rang out. Cruel Chief then revealed that the game time had just ended, and since she now had his special request letter, she could ask him to do anything she wanted for a whole week. Lux was confused. He thought time had already run out 5 minutes ago, but Cruel Chief had secretly moved the clock hands in the room. Lux couldn't believe he had been tricked so easily. Cruel Chief reminded him that she had already warned him earlier to be more cautious. Then she whispered to him that starting that moment and for the next week, she wanted him to be her boyfriend. Lux was stunned and his cheeks turned red. That evening, Lux and Aerie went to see Relie. Aerie mentioned that rumors about Lux dating Cruel Chief were already spreading around school. She understood it though, saying Lux was still in a growing phase. Lux clarified that he hadn't asked Cruel Chief for anything. Aerie said it was fine if he wanted to enjoy a normal school life, but reminded him not to forget his position there. Relie had already been waiting for the two of them. She showed them the whistle Regreed had used during the attack on the city 2 weeks earlier. According to her, Regreed had used the whistle to control the abyss, and it seemed like it was found inside some ruins. She explained that soon the Royal Knights would be launching an investigation, and she wanted Lux to confirm whether the whistle was the key or not. Lux agreed to take on the task. After meeting with Relie, Lux and Aerie headed to their rooms. Aerie told Lux to be careful in his role as a boyfriend. She had her concerns not only because Cruel Chief was a transfer student from the Emerald Kingdom, but also because Aerie felt Cruel Chief was hiding something. The next morning, Cruel Chief and Lux had breakfast together. Lux brought up the rumor he heard, that Cruel Chief was actually a princess from Ymir. Cruel Chief confirmed it and said one of the reasons she came to the kingdom of Atis Mata was for a political marriage. Lux was surprised, but Cruel Chief explained that 90% of noble marriages were like that. It was a logical solution even if it wasn't ideal. Still, she wanted to avoid it until the very last moment, at least until she reached her personal goal. Lux, now even more curious, asked what her personal goal was. Cruel Chief explained that in a few days, a maid from her family would be sent to the academy. The maid was coming to report back to the kingdom about how the engagement was progressing. Cruel Chief planned to use Lux to fool the maid into thinking things were going smoothly. Lux thought maybe it would be better for her to pick someone else since he had never been in a relationship before. At that moment, Cruel Chief asked Lux to come closer. She then leaned her cheek toward Lux's face, which instantly caused all the nearby students to scream in surprise. She warned him that if he tried to stop her, she might tell everyone about the time he peeked. Left with no choice, Lux agreed to go along with it. The sight made Lisha visibly irritated. That night, Lux and Cruel Chief were working on their homework together. Suddenly, Lisha showed up with Tilfer and Filthy. With an annoyed tone, Lisha asked what Cruel Chief was doing with Lux. Cruel Chief calmly explained that they were just getting to know each other better and doing their homework. Lisha told them to wrap it up since it was getting late. Lux noticed that Filthy looked very sleepy. He had actually woken her up earlier. Unable to fight off her drowsiness, Filthy leaned against Lux. Cruel Chief, also feeling tired, said she was going to bed, but Lisha stopped her, saying she had something to share. With a proud smile, Lisha told Cruel Chief that she had once held hands with Lux and that their relationship had already moved to a more intimate stage. Cruel Chief admitted she wasn't too familiar with romance customs in that country, but she asked if holding hands was really considered such a big deal. Tilfer chimed in, saying that Lisha might not fully understand things like that. Suddenly, Lux asked Lisha if she knew what a kiss was. Caught off guard, Lisha nervously responded that a kiss was something done during a wedding or when making children. Cruel Chief was surprised that Lisha didn't know more about it. Out of the blue, Filthy mentioned that she had kissed Lux before. Lux was shocked and quickly covered her mouth to stop her from saying more. Cruel Chief then told Lux to go to bed since they had a date scheduled for the next day. Hearing this, Lisha was stunned and even more annoyed. The next day, Lux and Cruel Chief met up for their date. Lux was stunned when he saw Cruel Chief wearing a stylish outfit. As they walked together, Cruel Chief held Lux's hand, which drew the attention of people around them. Lux asked if she had done that on purpose. Cruel Chief admitted that she had. She wanted to make sure everyone truly believed they were a couple. Unbeknownst to them, Lisha and Filthy had been following and watching them from a distance. Meanwhile, Cruel Chieffer and Lux went to a clothing store that seemed expensive to Lux. Cruel Chieffer thought Lux might be used to this kind of place since he was a former prince. Lux replied that he wasn't very fond of such fancy environments, a sentiment Cruel Chieffer shared. She explained that visiting places like that often led her to resent everyone who carried the title of nobility. At one point, Lisha and Filthy spied on Lux when he was shirtless inside the fitting room. Lisha became even more curious about what Lux and Cruel Chieffer were really doing. After leaving the store, Lux asked why Cruel Chieffer had gone through all that trouble. She said that the clothes he tried on really suited him and that she couldn't wait to see him wearing them in 3 days. Lux felt a little guilty, but Cruel Chieffer assured him that she was free to spend her money however she liked. Cruel Chieffer then invited Lux to a restaurant. As they walked side by side, she kept glancing at him, which made Lux ask what was going on. Cruel Chieffer responded that looking at his sweet face from the side was perfectly normal for someone in a relationship. Lux began to wonder if they were even going in the right direction, but Cruel Chieffer admitted she didn't know. She had been too focused on him the whole time and never got tired of being by his side. Suddenly, an attack came from above, and Lux quickly moved to protect Cruel Chieffer. 2 men approached them and warned them not to move, explaining that their comrade was aiming at Lux from above. If Lux dared to make a move, he would be shot. Lux began to wonder if these men were remnants of the Arcadia Kingdom's army and if their goal was to kidnap him. He suspected that they might actually be targeting the noblewoman, Cruel Chieffer. Cruel Chieffer whispered, asking if Lux could hold off the 2 men as she needed time to summon her drag ride. One of the men asked what they were whispering about and demanded that they draw their sword devices and fight. Lux launched an attack on the 2 assailants while Cruel Chieffer prepared to activate her drag ride, Fafnir. After Lux managed to defeat the 2 men, a sudden barrage of attacks came raining down from above. Fortunately, Cruel Chieffer had already activated Fafnir. Their enemies began to regroup and focus their attacks on Cruel Chieffer. However, she easily countered them all, precisely targeting every opponent in an instant. Lux was amazed by her combat skills. Lisha appeared and explained that Fafnir's special ability allowed its user to see glimpses of the future. Lux was surprised to see Lisha and Filthy there and asked what they were doing. Lisha insisted that it was just a coincidence and not because she cared about Lux and Cruel Chieffer's relationship. However, Lux noticed that the outfits they were wearing were disguises. The 2 men who had attacked Lux tried to escape, and Lux gave chase. One of them shouted at a woman who blocked his path, but unexpectedly, the woman grabbed him by the neck and subdued him. It turned out she was Alte Lise, a maid from the Einfolk family, sent to check on Cruel Chieffer's safety. That evening, while everyone was gathered for dinner, Alte Lise asked Cruel Chieffer who the young man before her was. Cruel Chieffer introduced Lux as her boyfriend, a former prince of the Arcadia Kingdom and her classmate. Lisha immediately objected to that statement, but Lux quickly covered her mouth and asked her to keep quiet. Suddenly, Balzaride arrived, claiming he came to see his future bride for the formal dinner meeting the next day. He described Cruel Chieffer as beautiful and modest, saying he could hardly wait for her to grow into the role. Upon realizing Balzaride was from the Kreutzer family, Lisha recognized him as a member of the 4 great nobles. Alte Lise explained that the Kreutzer family had a long-standing history tracing back to the Arcadia era. As previously discussed, Cruel Chieffer was to be introduced to Balzaride the following day, which would lead into plans for a formal engagement. Cruel Chieffer responded by stating that she was currently dating someone. Balzaride acknowledged Lux's identity as a surviving royal from the fallen Arcadia Kingdom. Cruel Chieffer explained that Lux was known as the undefeated weakling of the new kingdom of Atismata. Balzaride laughed at this and remarked that he and Lux were on completely different levels. Cruel Chieffer firmly asked him to stop referring to her as his future wife, as they didn't even know each other. Balzaride challenged Lux to a drag ride duel, but Cruel Chieffer suggested that it should be a tag match instead. She proposed that Alte Lise pair up with Balzaride. Hearing this, Balzaride seemed intrigued and agreed to the match, setting the duel to take place in 3 days. That night, Balzaride's associate approached him to discuss the upcoming ruins investigation. Balzaride explained that the horn-shaped whistle, which served as the key to the ruins, was currently in Reli's possession. His associate suspected that there might be another way to access the ruins, and Balzaride quickly understood what the person was aiming for. He then reassured the team by promising to meet the expectations that had been placed on him. The next day at school, Lux looked tired and sleepy. Cruel Chieffer came over to thank him for what he did the day before. She genuinely appreciated that Lux had stepped up to accept the duel challenge from Balzaride in order to protect her. Lux asked if everything was really alright, especially with only 2 days left until the duel. Cruel Chieffer admitted they hadn't really thought it through beforehand and it would likely be difficult. However, she believed it should be fine if Lux used his high-level drag ride. Cruel Chieffer then asked if Lux was upset about being involved in the duel, especially since he wasn't actually her boyfriend. Lux wasn't angry, since it had been his own suggestion to begin with. Unexpectedly, Lisha overheard their conversation. She realized that this meant Crucifer disliked political marriages, so Lux was pretending to be her boyfriend to give her peace of mind. That made Lisha feel at ease. From Lisha's perspective, there wouldn't be a problem with the duel as long as Lux and Crucifer used their real strength. She says she would get started right away on upgrading Lux's drag ride and even plan to create a special attack system, possibly adding a drill. But Lux quickly told her the drill wouldn't be necessary for his drag ride. Crucifer then told Lux that maybe they should cancel their date that day as she had something to take care of, and she left shortly after. Lisha noticed that Lux seemed really exhausted. Lux admitted that he hadn't gotten much sleep because he had a lot of work to do earlier that morning. While Lux was walking alone down the school hallway, Tilfer suddenly appeared and asked if he was feeling lonely since he wasn't with his girlfriend. Lux replied that Crucifer had something to take care of. Tilfer then invited him to come with her for a bit. She brought Lux into a room where Lisha and Filthy were waiting, dressed in maid outfits. They warmly welcomed him the moment he stepped in. Lux had no idea what was going on. Tilfer explained that since Lux had worked so hard that day, they had decided to do their best to help him relax and feel better. She invited Lux to sit back and enjoy the experience. Lux still looked confused. Apparently, Tilfer had asked Lisha earlier about what might make Lux happy. But since Lisha didn't really know what guys Lux's age typically liked, Tilfer figured that maybe Lux missed the days when he was still a prince. So they decided that dressing as maids might cheer him up. Lux admitted he never actually had a maid who served him directly. Hearing this, Tilfer said that this was the perfect chance for the three of them to give Lux a special, memorable experience. At that moment, Filthy served some food and invited Lux to enjoy the meal. Blushing, Lisha shyly asked if they were bothering Lux by doing all of this so suddenly. Lux, however, felt genuinely happy and thanked her. Lisha was surprised by his reaction. With a soft smile, she offered to act as a maid for him and even said he could treat her however he wanted. Lux was stunned and immediately responded that he would never treat her inappropriately. Lisha explained that Tilfer had told her certain things were also part of a maid's duty. Meanwhile, at the royal palace of the kingdom of Atismata, a meeting was being held between the four major noble families. They were discussing the growing concern about Ragnarok. Nauf, a noble from the Figrian family, mentioned that every ruin contained powerful abyss creatures guarding mystical powers. The Ragnarok currently threatening them was called Poseidon. Someone with a fossil had tried to awaken it out of desperation. Because of this, they needed to be prepared. They weren't even sure if the kingdom of Atismata's forces would be strong enough to take down Ragnarok. One of the nobles asked what actions they should take next. That's when King Kreutzer spoke up. He said there was one path they could take: continue investigating the ruins in order to find the most powerful weapon hidden inside. King Kreutzer declared that he wanted to entrust this important task to his son, Balzeride. Later that night, R'lyeh gathered the students to talk about the ruins investigation happening the next day. She showed them the horn-shaped whistle that would be the key focus of their mission. She explained that she had spoken to several people and was told that in order to access the deepest part of the ruins, they would need a special key. R'lyeh suspected that the horn-shaped whistle might be exactly that key. R'lyeh assigned the task to Lux, and Lux accepted it. Lisha mentioned that she would adjust Lux's drag ride the next day by adding a drill-type enhancement, but Lux told her it wasn't necessary. Lisha was confused as to why Lux kept refusing, even though the drill's capabilities could significantly boost his drag ride's power. At that moment, Lux noticed Crucifer standing at the far end of the room, and he couldn't understand why she was there. After the meeting ended, Lux approached Crucifer and asked why she had attended it. Crucifer replied that it made perfect sense for her to be there since she would be joining the investigation the next day. Lux was surprised as he thought transfer students like her weren't allowed to participate in ruin investigations. However, Crucifer explained that she had personally requested to take part. She asked Lux not to treat her any differently from the others and to see her as just another member of the team. For her, this was one of the few chances she got to move closer to her goal. Lux still didn't quite understand what that goal was. That night, Lux went to soak in the hot bath, still pondering why Crucifer was so eager to join the mission. To his surprise, he suddenly noticed Filthy bathing right next to him. Caught off guard, Lux asked her why she was there. Filthy explained that she had just finished training outside and that R'lyeh told her she could still use the bath if she went right away. Lux quickly realized this must have been another one of R'lyeh's schemes. He decided to leave the bath thinking that Filthy wouldn't want to bathe with a guy. However, Filthy calmly said she didn't mind bathing with a guy as long as it was someone she liked. She had actually wanted to share the bath with Lux for a long time, because it reminded her of their past. Embarrassed, Lux covered his face with his hands. When he peeked through his fingers and looked at Filthy, he felt it might be dangerous to stay there any longer. He was clearly nervous, but Filthy eventually dozed off in the bath. Lux immediately woke her up, feeling both surprised and awkward when his eyes unintentionally glanced toward her chest. His cheeks turned bright red as he told her she shouldn't fall asleep there. Filthy thanked him sincerely. Then, when Lux looked at Filthy's back, he asked if she remembered having a scar there. Filthy didn't seem to recall it clearly, but Lux was certain that she had a faint scar on her back, even if it wasn't a deep one. Before leaving, Filthy asked Lux to be careful during the investigation, and she mentioned that R'lyeh had forbidden her from going. Lux reassured her that he would return safely. However, as he continued to glance at Filthy's body, he felt his head spinning from staying in the bath too long and fainted into the water. The next day, when everyone had gathered and was ready to begin the investigation, the instructor announced a change in the mission. He called out Balzaride's name. Everyone was shocked to see him there. The instructor explained that they would have a special member joining the investigation. Balzaride introduced himself and said he was there to assist with the ruin investigation. Lisha looked annoyed and asked the instructor what was really going on. Balzaride asked whether Lisha was uncomfortable with an outsider joining such an important mission. He insisted that he had no intention of interfering and genuinely wanted to help. In fact, he had placed third in the Royal Capital's tournament and was offering to serve as their shield, especially since someone he considered his future wife was also part of the mission. In the end, they had no choice but to accept his involvement. Once they arrived at the ruins, Cruelchiefer immediately descended into the site. Lisha tried to stop her, but Cruelchiefer went ahead anyway. Lux thought Cruelchiefer was being too hasty, but Balzaride was quite fond of that bold side of her. Noct warned everyone to be careful because the signs of the enemy's presence were confirmed. The leader, Abyss, had appeared. This Abyss was Diablos, a terrifying force capable of destroying an entire small town on its own and making him extremely dangerous. Diablos aimed to attack Noct, but fortunately, Lux managed to protect him. Lux told Noct to get out of the way immediately, while he stood firm against Diablos' assault. When Lisha fired at Diablos, he pushed Lux aside and dodged attack after attack. Diablos then managed to capture Chalice, which made it difficult for Lisha to aim her shots effectively. Suddenly, Cruelchiefer launched a strike that hit Diablos directly. Her attack came from a high-level special drag machine called Wise Blood. Balzaride commented that everyone was overreacting about Abyss since he was nothing compared to Ragnarok. Then Balzaride demonstrated the power of his own high-level drag by launching an attack at Diablos. He approached Lux and asked if he wanted to fight him right then and there. Balzaride challenged Lux to a bet. Whoever defeated Abyss first would decide the duel's outcome. If Lux won, Balzaride promised to cancel the duel altogether. Lisha got annoyed and threatened to beat Balzaride if he caused any unnecessary trouble. Balzaride teased Lux by asking if he was feeling unconfident. Cruelchiefer urged them not to do anything foolish on the spot. Balzaride put a hand on Cruelchiefer's drag machine and called his future wife Gary Cold. Cruelchiefer reminded him that there were still other enemies to deal with before she would even think about defeating Balzaride. Cruelchiefer fired at Diablos again, but her power was no match for his attacks. She almost got hit but was saved just in time by Balzaride. Everyone continued shooting at Diablos, and Balzaride seemed able to predict where Diablos would move next. He threw his giant axe and struck Diablos perfectly. Everyone was shocked, and Balzaride laughed, claiming he had won the fight. He also called Lux weak, saying he never expected anyone to match his strength. At that moment, Cruelchiefer wondered why she couldn't use her Wise Blood drag. Suddenly, something happened to Diablos. Lisha told everyone to activate their shields at maximum power. The ruins began to glow and everyone tried to withstand the intense light. Lux noticed that Fafnir had gone out of control. Cruelchiefer was confused about why this was happening to her drag machine. Lux immediately rushed to help her. The ruins shone brightly and dazzled them all, while Diablos' explosion was swallowed by the ruins. After that, Lux dreamed again that he was falling. Fubiel asked him why he had lost control like that and wanted to know what really happened to him. Lux admitted he had just been trying a new technique. Then Lux suddenly snapped awake, finding himself in an unfamiliar place with no sign of his friends. He didn't recognize where he was. Cruelchiefer suddenly appeared and said they seemed to be inside the ruins. Lux yelled out in shock. He asked what had really happened, but all he could remember was Diablos' explosion. Cruelchiefer explained that they were probably sucked into the ruins after Diablos exploded. She said she was fine thanks to Lux's protection and thanked him. She suggested they head to the altar in the middle of the ruins, confident they could meet the others there. The two started walking. Cruel Chifer mentioned it looked like it might rain soon. Lux was surprised. He wondered if it really could rain inside the ruins. Cruel Chifer said she was only guessing since she didn't really understand how the place worked. Suddenly, Cruel Chifer stumbled and fell, but Lux caught her. He suggested they take a break since she might still be exhausted from the battle. However, Cruel Chifer refused. She didn't care what happened. What mattered was that she kept moving because her chances were limited. Cruel Chifer stood up again but fell once more. Lux offered to support her as they continued onward. Lux asked why Cruel Chifer was searching for the Black Hero. She explained that normally, no matter what happens, there's a limit to how long you can use a drag. But apparently that limit didn't apply to the Black Hero. She hoped it was true, and that the Black Hero was someone like her, which was why she was looking for him. When they reached the altar, Cruel Chifer said it seemed like they were the first to arrive. Lux took out a whistle and wondered if it might be the key, asking if it was okay to blow it here. When Cruel Chifer reached the center of the altar, a warning suddenly sounded, confirming the key's presence and activating a special code to unlock it. Lux was shocked and wondered if Cruel Chifer was actually Key. Cruel Chifer admitted it and revealed that she wasn't an ordinary human like others in the world. She also confessed that she was the only survivor from the ruins. The altar then opened slowly. Lux still couldn't understand why it happened. Cruel Chifer and Lux arrived at the altar ruins. As Cruel Chifer walked toward the center of the altar, it suddenly opened. It turned out that Cruel Chifer was the key to unlocking it. Cruel Chifer admitted that he was not actually a human from that world and that he was the only survivor from the ruins. As the altar doors opened, the surrounding area immediately began to collapse. Seeing the danger nearby, Lux quickly pulled Cruel Chifer inside. Although they managed to avoid the fallen debris, it seemed like they were now trapped inside that place. Cruel Chifer kept walking forward, while Lux had no idea what kind of place they were in. Cruel Chifer explained that he had been told he was found inside a box just like the one there. Only then did Lux realize that Cruel Chifer was not actually a biological child of the Einfolk kingdom. Cruel Chifer shared that his adoptive father was researching the ruins for the religious nation of Ymir. During that research, his adoptive father found Cruel Chifer and took him out of the ruins. Cruel Chifer was then used as a link to a lost past. He confessed that he had no memories of his past and had unknowingly spent time living with the Einfolk family. Eventually, Cruel Chifer realized he was adopted by the Einfolk family. His parents, siblings, maids, and everyone else kept their distance from him. Cruel Chifer worked hard in his studies and in training to become a dragon knight so that he could earn their love and be accepted as part of the family, but he never got that acceptance. After receiving a special dragon machine, his older and younger sisters questioned him. Faintly, Cruel Chifer heard his family say that he was different from them. Cruel Chifer didn't want to believe they trusted the research on the ruins that much. He hoped that he was truly part of the Einfolk family. But the truth was, Cruel Chifer's real identity was that of a survivor from the ruins. He still didn't know much about his past or whether his friends were also survivors. Even so, Lux mentioned that they hadn't done any research on the ruins yet. However, Cruel Chifer asked him not to continue because he was afraid that none of his friends would acknowledge his existence. Cruel Chifer apologized for driving Lux into his selfishness over his own meaningless existence. Lux said that wasn't true. He told Cruel Chifer not to worry about the religious nation of Ymir or the Einfolk family, because to him, Cruel Chifer was his friend. He asked Cruel Chifer not to say such sad things anymore. Cruel Chifer laughed and suggested that Lux shouldn't take the complaints of a woman too seriously. Lux was surprised and wondered if Cruel Chifer was just joking. According to Cruel Chifer, Lux's weakness was being too kind to others, so he wanted to test that. Unexpectedly, Lux's reaction was beyond what Cruel Chifer expected. Lux laughed and felt a little embarrassed. Cruel Chifer then asked why Lux was so kind, even though he was a prince from the kingdom of Arcadia with a bad reputation. Lux guessed it might be fate. The reason he, his mother, and Aerie were expelled from the royal palace was because his grandfather was a tutor within the royal family. His grandfather had seen how the kingdom operated and couldn't just stand by quietly. No one wanted to help the royal family who were suffering, so they ended up abandoned and ignored by both the royal family and the people. Cruel Chifer asked Lux if he held any grudge against the royal family and those people. Lux admitted that he had once held resentment and even started to hate everyone since no one wanted to help him. But Filthy helped him. She was the only one who came every day to support him, even when Lux felt worthless. That was when Lux realized he didn't actually want to hate everyone, especially the people who mattered, those who seemed like they would be important. He knew he didn't want to hate them because of the kingdom. Lux wanted to build a country where the people he loved could live without hatred. Cruel Chifer asked if Lux would help him if he became the prince of the Atismata kingdom. Suddenly, a drill pierced through the place. It turned out to be Lisha drilling there. Lisha showed off the drill, saying how useful it was. She then asked to make sure Lux and Cruel Chief weren't doing anything strange. Lux wondered what kind of strange things she meant. Lisha blushed and got annoyed, calling Lux a pervert. After returning to the academy, Lux told Aerie everything. Aerie asked if Lux had received any explanation about the key, even though Lux's wyvern had been damaged. Lux apologized to Aerie. Aerie admitted that she wasn't angry because Lux was careless. After all, the ruins were dangerous, yet Lux still acted recklessly. Lux apologized again. Aerie then asked if the horn whistle wasn't the key. Lux said there was no reaction at all, even when inside the ruins. Aerie asked if anything had changed, but Lux chose to say there was nothing. Aerie concluded that this meant there had been no progress, and she offered Lux some herbal tea. The tea was from Cruel Chief and was believed to be good for recovering from fatigue, so Lux could sleep well. Aerie told Lux to rest since there was still time before the duel. Lux thanked her and quickly drank it. Later, Aerie entered Lux's room and saw him fast asleep. She read the special request letter. After giving Lux the herbal tea, Aerie met with Cruel Chief. Cruel Chief thanked Aerie and said she couldn't involve Lux any further, especially since the request letter would expire the next day. Aerie had already suspected that Cruel Chief still didn't fully understand her older brother. That night, Cruel Chief met with Balzaride and Altelize to accept a duel challenge. Balzaride asked what happened to Lux because he wasn't there. Cruel Chief said she had sent Lux home. Balzaride then activated his drag machine. Altelize suggested that Cruel Chief shouldn't underestimate him since she would be Balzaride's partner in the duel. However, Balzaride suddenly knocked Altelize unconscious. Then he told Cruel Chief to start immediately. They attacked each other. Cruel Chief managed to hit Balzaride precisely. Balzaride realized that the power of Fafnir allowed him to see the future. Balzaride caught Cruel Chief, but she broke free and immediately rained down gunfire on him. Yet for some reason, none of her attacks hit Balzaride. Cruel Chief was confused about what was wrong with her vision. Balzaride explained that it was because Cruel Chief failed to recognize her true power. He then shot at her. Cruel Chief quickly put up her shield, but Balzaride stabbed her from behind with his huge axe, causing her to fall. Balzaride apologized and said that sooner or later Cruel Chief's belly would be swollen, so he would attack her gently. He asked if the match would continue and told Cruel Chief not to disappoint him by showing such a shameful self. Cruel Chief replied by asking if Balzaride was actually happy because this was exactly what he had in mind. She also said she knew Balzaride was the one who incited the thieves to attack the students during the investigation of the ruins to find out about the Fafnir's special ability. She understood that by knowing about the Fafnir's power, Balzaride could avoid danger. Cruel Chief then asked if what made Altelize faint was the power of Azigahaka. Balzaride confirmed it. Balzaride smiled and admitted he had planned everything to capture Cruel Chief the key. However, even though Cruel Chief knew the truth, he believed she was nothing more than a tool that could not change anything, and he was sure she would never defeat him. Balzaride even said that no one in the world could save Cruel Chief, which was why her fate was to serve him only. Suddenly, Lux threw a sword toward Balzaride. Balzaride dodged skillfully. Lux arrived with his black drag machine and Balzaride didn't recognize him. Cruel Chief was shocked to see him. Lux apologized for being late and said he was joining the duel. Balzaride laughed when he saw Lux revealing his identity as a woman. According to Balzaride, the black hero was even dumber than he thought. Lux said Balzaride didn't understand how valuable Cruel Chief was and that he wouldn't hand her over to him. Lux immediately activated his reload on fire attack. Cruel Chief shouted that she didn't want Lux to get more involved in this matter. Lux and Balzaride clashed fiercely, with Balzaride managing to swing his massive axe. Lux realized that Balzaride could predict his moves using a special Fafnir ability called Wise Blood. Hearing this, Cruel Chief was shocked to find out that Azigahaka had the power to steal his opponent's special abilities. Every time Balzaride used that power, it drained energy from Cruel Chief's drag. Cruel Chief then understood that Balzaride had done the same thing to Altelize, so Azigahaka's ability was to steal energy from any drag it touched. Balzaride admitted that he was impressed by Lux's insight. Then he launched an attack aimed at Cruel Chief to lure Lux in, hoping Lux would immediately make a move. Once Lux touched him, Balzaride unleashed a reload on fire attack. Using his Wise Blood ability, he could anticipate Lux's next move, and then he quickly swung his massive axe, putting pressure on Lux. Balzaride laughed mockingly at the Black Hero's power after having stolen it. Cruel Chief wondered why Lux was willing to fight for her, even though they weren't connected in any way and Lux wouldn't gain anything from the fight. Suddenly, Aerie pointed out that this was the downside that also became Lux's strength. Lux acted beyond what anyone expected, and if they tried to stop him, he definitely wouldn't listen. Aerie asked Crucifer to watch how Lux was fighting for her sake. At that moment, Lux was still holding back Balzarai's attacks. Balzarai knew that Lux must be aware of Ragnarok's location, and he wanted to face Ragnarok on behalf of the Etismata Kingdom. Balzarai then let Lux go and opened fire, but Lux blocked the bullets by drawing his sword. Balzarai said he needed to quickly find new armor and techniques from the ruins. He even claimed that sacrificing one woman could save the entire country. Suddenly, Lux's drag machine went out of control. Crucifer pleaded with Lux to stop everything, but Lux said it wasn't over yet. Crucifer told Lux not to push himself because she was only using him, and to her, Lux was nothing more than a tool. She admitted this now because if she had said it earlier, things might have ended without hope and without the feelings she was experiencing. Crucifer cried sadly while saying this, but Lux still believed Crucifer was his girlfriend, so he could definitely help her. Lux asked Crucifer to let him fight for his beloved girlfriend. Balzarai called Lux stupid and underestimated what Lux was going to do since his power had already been stolen and his drive machine was out of control. Lux activated his recoil burst ability. Balzarai mocked him as a pathetic prince playing the hero and immediately activated multiple layers of defense. At that moment, Lux said he didn't want to be a hero, but ever since he swore to destroy the kingdom, he had prepared himself to fight. Balzarai couldn't understand how Lux was able to control his sword when his drag machine was going haywire. With all his strength, Lux managed to defeat Balzarai. Crucifer was stunned and asked Aerie if Lux shouldn't have been able to use his special ability. Aerie explained that it wasn't actually a special ability. Lux's plan was to make his drive lose control, gather that chaotic energy until the last moment, then use it like a double-edged sword. That was how he managed to gain unusual power. Crucifer said Lux had been reckless, but Aerie pointed out that was just who Lux was, never caring about his little sister's worries and always fighting for others. After the duel ended, Lux invited Crucifer to return to the academy. Crucifer wiped her tears and took Lux's hand. The next day, Lux and Crucifer went on a date. As usual, Lisha followed them and waited outside. Tilfer asked why Lisha didn't just go inside, but Lisha refused, believing that Lux had come there to meet Alte Lise. So Lisha peeked through the window and saw Lux looking surprised because Alte Lise had asked him to become engaged to Crucifer. Alte Lise explained that Lux's skills as a drag knight had already been proven by defeating Balzarai, and she was confident that the family head would see it as the right decision for Lux to be engaged to Crucifer. She took responsibility for everything that had happened and asked for permission to help support Lux and Crucifer's relationship so that they wouldn't run into any more trouble. Lux hadn't agreed yet, but Alte Lise quickly excused herself to leave. Lux begged Alte Lise to listen to his explanation first. Then Crucifer asked Lux to sit down. Lux told her that their relationship was supposed to be just pretend, so he wondered how things ended up like this. Crucifer reminded him that he had said it himself during their duel the night before. She clearly heard Lux say that she was his girlfriend. Lux blushed and admitted he said that out of anger. Crucifer said it wasn't a big deal if they got engaged. Lux asked her not to tease him, but Crucifer admitted she didn't like indecisive guys and had understood that about Lux during the week they had been dating. According to Crucifer, Lux was very aggressive and that made her fall in love with him. Then she suddenly kissed Lux on the lips, which shocked Lisha to no end. Crucifer kissed him again, leaving Lux surprised and unable to pull away. Lisha became so angry that the glass in front of her cracked. After Crucifer pulled away from the kiss, Lux's face turned red with embarrassment. She gently stroked Lux's cheek and said she wouldn't mind doing that if they ended up getting married. Lux was visibly trembling after hearing that. Suddenly, Lisha came in and scolded them both. One night at the academy, the students noticed a beautiful girl they had never seen before. She quickly ran away to avoid their conversations. Suddenly, a trainer called out to her, telling her not to be wandering around so late at night. He asked her to return to the dormitory and warned her about thieves lurking nearby. The trainer felt like he recognized her face and asked if she was a transfer student, to which she admitted she was. He reminded her to be careful since there had been reports of perverts or peeping individuals around. The girl wondered why no one seemed to notice her presence. Earlier, when she was with her friends, Lux asked Chalice if the academy's security had changed recently. Chalice explained that ever since rumors about perverts roaming around started, the academy had tightened its security. According to her, the situation was troublesome, especially with the ongoing problem of Ragnarok in the city. Lux recalled Balzarai's words about fighting Ragnarok to protect the Etismata Kingdom. Chalice mentioned that besides Balzarai, there was another knight who could defeat Ragnarok, Celestia Ralgris. She was a princess from one of the 4 great noble families and the strongest third-year student at the academy. Rumor had it she would soon return from the kingdom's capital and was known for strongly disliking men. Lux felt worried because he needed to talk to Celestia. Chalice said they could discuss it later and asked Lux to help her patrol around the school, which Lux agreed to. Suddenly, Noct and Lisha grabbed both of Lux's hands and started dressing him up as a girl. It turned out that the girl who was mistaken for the transfer student was actually Lux, disguised as a female. At that moment, Lux thought that even though he knew he was a decoy, he didn't expect things to go that far. Lux was very curious about what Celestia, the strongest senior at the academy, would be like. While waiting on a park bench, he suddenly overheard someone talking to a cat, saying she had to stay in the kingdom's capital. Before the girl could say more, the cat walked away. Lux grew curious about who the girl really was. Suddenly, someone appeared behind Lux, holding a knife to him. Lux screamed in surprise, which made the girl look toward him. Lux wondered if this person was the thief the trainer had warned about. The girl immediately attacked the attacker, saying she would not forgive his actions, and told him to drop his weapon and surrender. The attacker then threw tear gas to blind both of them. Lux saw a knife being thrown in their direction and managed to block it, but the blade scratched his hand. The girl asked if Lux was okay and quickly took him to the student infirmary. She asked Lux to take off his shirt so she could treat his wound, which made him worried because he was disguised as a woman. The girl insisted that he remove his shirt, saying it wasn't good to leave the wound untreated. Lux removed his shirt and asked the girl to treat him from behind. After she finished bandaging his hand, Lux thanked her. The girl commented that Lux's body was quite muscular, guessing he must be skilled with a sword. She was surprised when Lux admitted he had seen her talking to the cat earlier and asked him to forget it, calling it just Lux's imagination. She said that just because she did that didn't mean she didn't have friends or anyone to talk to. The girl was relieved that Lux's injury was only minor and warned him not to act recklessly again. She also said it was her duty to protect the underclassmen. Lux admitted he was glad she was okay. The next morning, while having breakfast, Lux still remembered the girl saying she had never seen him before. Lux had to tell her his name was Luno, and she introduced herself as Celestia. Celestia seemed interested in Lux and even invited him to talk again sometime. As the strongest student in the academy, she was known for her strong dislike of men. While Lux was daydreaming, Lisha called for him. When he didn't respond right away, she wondered if he was tired. Lux admitted he was a bit exhausted from last night's patrol. Crucifer then appeared and said that she had planned to teach some lessons that day. She offered Lux a break or suggested they go for a walk to change the atmosphere. Lux's face turned red when Crucifer held his hand and brought her face closer to his. Seeing this, Lisha immediately scolded them for being affectionate since their act was supposed to be over. She then asked Crucifer to let go of his hand. The two of them ended up playfully fighting over Lux, who felt embarrassed because everyone was watching them. That night, Balzaride's friend came to his prison cell. Balzaride was confident that his friend had come to rescue him. He looked happy and said that from now on, he would never lose to Lux again. Balzaride's friend touched his chest with a finger, and in an instant, Balzaride transformed. He wondered why his friend had left him behind, especially since Balzaride was the one who had planted the Ragnarok seed. His friend smiled and blew a whistle. Shortly after, several Abyss appeared at that location. The next day, while in his room, Lux thought about how he needed to press the Ragnarok, so he had to talk to Celestia. Suddenly, Tilfer knocked on his door and called him immediately. It turned out there was a debate going on between Lisha and Celestia. Celestia objected to the academy accepting Lux because his admission was decided when she wasn't there. Lux quickly entered the room and Celestia greeted him. Celestia thanked Lux for saving the academy from danger while she was away, but she believed that as a male, Lux shouldn't be at the academy. Lisha argued that without Lux, the rebel forces would have attacked the academy. Celestia said she would handle the situation herself, so there was no need to rely on a man's strength. Lux asked Celestia to allow him to join in pressing Ragnarok, which was supposed to be Balzaride's task. According to Celestia, the threat to the Atismatic Kingdom had nothing to do with Lux, so if Ragnarok were to rise, she herself would face it. Still, Lux wasn't planning to leave the academy. Lux didn't doubt Celestia's strength, but Ragnarok was a powerful and dangerous enemy to be faced alone. Celestia got annoyed and firmly stated that she would not accept Lux in the academy. Relia tried to calm them down, concluding that Celestia didn't want any males in the school, while Lisha didn't want Lux expelled. Relia believed the other students' opinions might differ and suggested settling the matter with a duel. Relia said the duel would take place in 3 days at the Royal Knight's Fortress on Reese Island. He hoped that after seeing Lux's true strength, Celestia would decide whether to accept him or not. Lisha was happy with the decision and even bet that Lux would win. Celestia accepted the decision and left, confident that Lux wouldn't be able to defeat her. That night, Shania knocked on Celestia's door and thanked her for negotiating to expel Lux from the school to restore the academy's standards. Celestia told Shania not to worry because she would still make Lux leave after fighting him. She couldn't believe she had to fight Lux, but that was the only way to protect the school. At Reese Island, Celestia asked all the students to do light training since they had come there to improve their skills. Lisha encouraged Lux not to give up because even light training with Celestia was very tough. Lux noticed a place at the top of the island. Lisha immediately invited him to start training. That day, the students practiced sword swings alongside Celestia. After the training, Lisha rested with Chalice, Lux, and Crucifer at the dining area. Lisha felt extremely tired because the training almost killed her. Lux thought Celestia was amazing because she could train longer than anyone else. Crucifer said that was typical of Celestia. She worked harder than others, was very diligent and strong, but it seemed like she was always thinking about something. Chalice soon invited them to return to their rooms and rest. At that time, Lux returned the costume he had worn during his disguise. Chalice was curious why Lux went through the trouble of bringing the costume to the island. She said Lux was really kind and gave the costume to him as a gift. Lux declined, saying he didn't need it, but his friends insisted that the costume suited him well. Suddenly, Shania called Lux to come with her because there was an urgent matter. Shania tricked Lux by telling him that Celestia had asked for a massage. When he entered the room, Lux was surprised to see Celestia without any clothes on. He wondered why Celestia was there and why someone who disliked men like her would ask him for help. After finishing the massage, Celestia thanked him and said she wanted to change clothes quickly, so she asked him to turn off the lights. Lux was about to leave the room, but Celestia asked him to stay because she wanted to express her gratitude. When the lights went off, Lux quickly changed into a woman's costume. Once the lights came back on, Celestia thanked him again and said she hadn't realized it was Luno who had been massaging her. She felt happy and asked about Luno's injuries. Celestia invited Luno to chat for a while, but Luno refused, saying there was something to take care of. Celestia was disappointed and suggested going for a walk during the next break. Luno didn't agree immediately, which made Celestia think he might dislike her, but eventually he accepted. Celestia was very happy and asked to meet in front of the training area after lunch. As Luno was about to leave, Celestia noticed a black sword and asked if it belonged to him. She said the sword device was beautiful and immediately handed it back to him. Luno felt relieved after leaving Celestia's room. Suddenly, Shania appeared and demanded to know who he really was since she had never seen him before. At that moment, Crucifer told Shania to let Luno go because she had some business with him. Shania called Crucifer rude for interfering, but Crucifer pointed out that Shania had been secretly standing at the door and asked what she was really doing. Shania left quickly to avoid a confrontation with Crucifer. Luno was very grateful to Crucifer and was surprised that she recognized him even while he was in disguise. Crucifer warned Lux to be careful because it seemed like Shania was trying to get him expelled from the academy. In the early morning, Filthy was staring out the window of Lux's room. Lux woke up and was shocked to see Filthy inside his room. He reminded her that the place wasn't the girls' dormitory but the training area. Still sleepy, Filthy asked if Lux wanted a hug because her mother once told her that a hug could make someone feel more motivated. Lux remembered their childhood and said he was no longer a child. Filthy was surprised by how much Lux had changed since she thought he would never change because he had always been kind. She hugged him tightly and said they would never change at all. Filthy even said she would fight Celestia if Lux lost and that she wouldn't let him get kicked out of the academy. Lux thanked Filthy and promised he would do his best. The next day, Celestia invited Luno to go out together. She took him for a walk through the market. Celestia invited Luno to go inside a lingerie store. At that moment, Celestia tried on some lingerie in front of Luno and even encouraged him to try some as well. Feeling a bit dizzy from seeing Celestia's appearance, Luno decided to quietly slip away. After they finished their little outing, Celestia apologized to Luno for forcing him to come along. She felt like she wasn't doing a good job as a bodyguard for her underclassmen and thought she had failed as a senior student. She was even worried that her father might scold her despite being the leader of the Knights. Luno disagreed, saying that wasn't true at all because he really enjoyed spending time with her. Upon hearing this, Celestia immediately hugged Luno and called him a very kind person. Afterward, they drank tea and ate some cakes together under a tree. Unexpectedly, Celestia fell asleep for a short while. Luno thought it was okay since it was break time, but Celestia felt like she shouldn't show any sign of weakness. Seeing that, Luno asked if Celestia always held herself back like that. Celestia answered that strong people are those who can endure their loneliness, so she was fine. Suddenly, Luno laughed and said he remembered Celestia chatting with a cat. Embarrassed, Celestia begged him to forget about that. She explained that just because she talked to a cat didn't mean she was always alone or lonely in the capital city. Luno smiled and pointed out that Celestia had just revealed her own secret. Celestia admitted it and wondered why people thought she was a woman who hated men. Luna was surprised to hear that. Celestia then asked Luno not to tell anyone that she didn't actually dislike men that much. Hearing that again, Luna was even more surprised. One day, one of Nauf's subordinates came to report to him. The subordinate informed Nauf that they couldn't find the Ragnarok fossil. Naturally, Nauf was irritated upon hearing this. The man continued, saying that the patrol team had found traces of the fossil, specifically an empty shell left behind by the Ragnarok, but the actual body of the creature was nowhere to be found. That same day at the academy, a swimming practice was about to begin. While they were changing clothes, Shania asked Celestia whether Lux would be coming to the practice and if she would allow him to swim together with them. Shania found it odd that Celestia didn't reject the idea outright. Instead, Celestia said that she had already told Luno that she didn't actually hate men. In fact, it was quite the opposite. She was interested in them. Celestia went on to explain that the person who had raised her since childhood was a kind and strong man, but despite that, she had no idea how to interact with young men. Moreover, as the eldest daughter of the Raugrus family, one of the 4 great nobles and a leading figure among the kingdom's knights, she had always been expected not to rely too much on men. Later on the beach, Lux's friends called him over to join them. He was stunned when he saw them in their swimsuits. Embarrassed, Lux quickly turned his face away and said he hadn't seen anything. The girls walked over to him. Noct commented that Lux's reaction was strange, reminding him that they were wearing swimsuits, not underwear. Cruelchifer mentioned it was her first time wearing a bikini, and that she actually liked it. Filthy playfully splashed water at Lux, trying to get him to join in. Lux ran off to avoid getting soaked and ended up spotting Lisha, who seemed self-conscious about her swimsuit. She hadn't expected the design to expose her midriff that much and tried to cover it with a towel. Lux told her the bikini looked really good on her. Lisha didn't take that well. She looked annoyed and called Lux a pervert. Not long after, Relie and Aerie came over. Lux was surprised to see Relie also wearing a bikini like the other students. Relie said she was a girl too, just like the rest of them. As she removed the towel covering her, her chest was revealed, noticeably larger than most of the others. Aerie couldn't help but feel a little jealous when she saw that. Lux noticed Aerie looking upset and asked what was wrong. Aerie instinctively covered her chest with her arms and called Lux a pervert. Lux was taken aback, confused about why Aerie would think that. Lisha also found Lux's behavior questionable. Suddenly, Shania and Celestia arrived. Celestia seemed confused and asked Relie if they weren't supposed to be at the beach for training. Relie was surprised by the question and pointed out that Celestia had brought a cute bikini with her. Celestia explained it was actually chosen by Luno, her underclassman, who she had heard would also be participating in the swim training. The group began to wonder where Luno was, and Relie even questioned whether a student named Luno actually existed at the academy. Out of nowhere, Lux was pulled aside by Chalice, who handed him a bikini as a gift. Lux was shocked and said he wasn't some kind of decoy at the beach, especially since there were no thieves around. Noct and Tilford tried to pressure him into putting it on. They just wanted to see what he'd look like wearing it. Lux immediately bolted and accidentally bumped into Celestia, causing her to fall. Shania quickly helped her up. Lux apologized to Celestia, who seemed surprised that he was still spending his time like this when their duel was coming up soon. Shania then suggested they head back, telling Relie that if there was no actual training happening, they should return to the training grounds. As Lux watched them walk away, he recalled a conversation he had with Celestia the day before, back when he was disguised as Luno. Celestia had told him that she wanted to apologize to Lux. She had learned swordsmanship and battle tactics from Wade Rodebelt, Lux's grandfather. It was thanks to him that she had gained her strength. However, after that, Wade passed away because of her. That's why she wanted to keep Lux, Wade's grandson, safe from harm. In their upcoming duel, Celestia couldn't afford to lose to Lux. That night, Lux couldn't stop thinking about what Celestia had said, but he was determined not to lose to her. At the same time, it seemed like one of Balzaride's allies was planning something. The next morning, the duel between Lux and Celestia was about to begin. Their instructor was there to supervise the duel. The instructor explained that the winner would have one of their wishes granted. Lux's wish was to stay enrolled in the academy and be allowed to join the missions to defeat the Abyss. Celestia, on the other hand, wished for Lux to leave the academy and rejected his request outright. The instructor gave the signal, and both of them drew their swords and summoned their drag rides. Celestia quickly activated hers, called Lindworm. Noct looked surprised. Despite Celestia using a high-level special drag ride, Lux had chosen to use a wyvern instead of Bahamut. Aerie explained that some of the royal knights involved in training still didn't know Bahamut's true identity, so Lux was deliberately hiding it. She also believed that Lux might actually have a shot at winning. The duel between Lux and Celestia then officially began. Meanwhile, a spy was seen suddenly running near the training grounds. Fortunately, Tilfer and Chalice intercepted him in time. They quickly realized the man was a spy from the Heiberg Republic. It turned out that Chalice and Tilfer had already gathered evidence showing that the spy had been recording information about the Academy and sending it back to Heiberg as coded messages. Chalice revealed a stack of envelopes in her hand and stated that the thief who had been sneaking around the Academy was actually this spy. Tilfer was convinced that everything had been orchestrated as a setup to trap Lux. She then demanded that the spy remove his mask as they already knew who was behind it. It was Shania. Shania removed her mask and Chalice immediately asked why she had done all of this. Shania confessed that her mission was to eliminate everyone at the Academy and destroy the kingdom of Atismata. Chalice and Tilfer were shocked by her response. Shania then activated her drag ride and suddenly, the sound of a war horn echoed through the air. Both Chalice and Tilfer were stunned when they saw Shania's drag ride. Shania declared that she would bring an end to the boring duel and turn it into a real battle. Back at the duel, Celestia continued attacking Lux. She told him to surrender, pointing out that his wyvern was already starting to spiral out of control. In response, Lux launched his recoil blast attack at her. However, Celestia quickly teleported out of harm's way and countered with Starlight Deluge. Suddenly, a terrifying roar came from underground, followed by violent tremors. A giant monster emerged from beneath the earth. Lux was immediately worried about Celestia's safety. Lisha called on everyone nearby to evacuate the civilians, and the others quickly responded. Ayuri, however, was frantically searching for Filthy. Filthy, exhausted and stumbling through the forest, nearly collapsed before Raleigh caught her in an embrace. Raleigh gently reassured her, promising she would never let her be taken again, even if their enemy was the kingdom of Atismata itself. Meanwhile, the duel arena was being swallowed up by tentacles and a monstrous creature. Lux stayed close to Celestia, making sure she was safe. The enormous creature was a Ragnarok that was close to fully awakening. Celestia took responsibility for drawing the enemy to them and declared she would defeat Ragnarok on her own. Lux warned her not to act recklessly, but Celestia didn't listen. She pressed forward through the sea of tentacles trying to trap her and activated her Divine Gate attack, striking directly at Ragnarok's core. The beast fell limp, releasing a strange blue fluid. Celestia assumed that she had won. Just as she was about to collapse, Lux caught her. Suddenly, Shania appeared and praised Celestia. She asked if Celestia still hadn't had enough. Celestia was stunned by Shania's sudden reappearance and the tone of her voice. Shania declared that things weren't over yet. A sharp whistle rang out again. Lux recognized the sound and immediately suspected that the one who blew the horn was his older brother, Fuil. After hearing the sudden sound of a whistle, Ragnarok unexpectedly rose again, leaving Celestia and Lux almost unable to believe their eyes. Shania quickly launched an attack on Celestia, but Lux stepped in and blocked it. Shania called Lux a useless prince who knew nothing, then revealed that it was actually Celestia who had killed Lux's grandfather. She immediately fired another shot, hitting both Lux and Celestia. Celestia was nearly unconscious, and Lux tried to wake her up. When she came to, she apologized to Lux for not telling him the truth about Wade, his grandfather. She explained that when she was a child, she had accidentally overheard a conversation about corruption within the kingdom of Arcadia. When she reported it to Wade, who was a royal advisor at the time, he was thrown in prison and later died there. Everyone related to him by blood was also banished from the palace. Celestia remembered Wade's last words to her. He told her that she was not at fault and that she should fix everything and take his place. At that time, she too was in danger and had to flee, or so she thought. But in the end, she couldn't do it. Instead, she lied to Lux and ended up dragging him into all of this. She apologized again. Celestia believed Lux must resent her, but he shook his head. Then he revealed his black sword device. Celestia noted that it looked just like the one Luno carried. Lux apologized for keeping it a secret from her and said he was ready to accept whatever punishment she wanted to give him. He activated his drag ride and Celestia commented on how special it was. Lux confessed that he didn't hold any grudge against her. In fact, he deeply admired her. He liked how strong, kind, and awkward she was. He promised to protect her, and he respected her for taking his grandfather's place. Lux moved towards Shania, who had been waiting for the Black Hero to try and kill her. Lux easily broke the wings of Shania's drag ride, but Shania said it wasn't over yet. There was no way Lux could defeat Ragnarok. Lux didn't stop. He relentlessly slashed at Ragnarok's tentacles, which kept regenerating, but he responded just as fast, cutting them down one after another. The move he used was called End Action. Aerie explained to Nock that End Action was one of Lux's secret techniques. It allowed him to continuously give commands to his drag ride without pause, unleashing a non-stop assault. It wasn't a move that ended when interrupted, it only stopped when every last enemy had been defeated. Shania screamed that it was pointless for Lux to go all out against Ragnarok. Suddenly, Celestia pointed her weapon at Shania and urged her to surrender before the fight ended badly. Shania was confused about why Celestia was still trying to reason with her. She accused Celestia of being the perfect student, too blind to know whether she herself was good or evil. Shania even doubted whether Celestia could save her if she had to. She then turned and walked away. At that moment, Lux destroyed Ragnarok's core and collapsed from exhaustion. Suddenly, the person who had blown the whistle began laughing, surprised that Lux had actually managed to defeat Ragnarok. Shania quickly grabbed Ragnarok's core and took the whistleblower with her. The mysterious person mentioned that maybe it would have been better not to kill Ragnarok. Lux, confused, demanded to know who the whistleblower really was. The figure pulled back their hood and Lux immediately realized the person wasn't Fuyo. But this stranger knew Fuyo. The whistleblower introduced herself as Haze and said she was looking forward to seeing Lux again, because very soon she planned to bring back the tragedy from 5 years ago. Right after Shania fired one last attack at Lux and Haze vanished. After that battle, Lux treated Celestia's injuries. She thanked Lux for forgiving her, but she still felt conflicted about Luno. Lux apologized to her, but Celestia admitted she had shown a shameful side of herself and said she would not forgive Lux because in her eyes he was unfair and sneaky. Lux, however, said he would do anything for her. Even though Celestia was happy Lux had saved her, she felt unsure because she often thought she didn't deserve to be saved by anyone. She confessed that she didn't really understand how guys think or how to get close to them. Then she asked Lux to teach her, just like his grandfather had taught him. That was the condition she gave in order to accept Lux back into the Royal Knights and also allow him to return to the academy. Lux thanked her, saying that when Celestia talked to guys like that, it showed her true personality. He believed that everyone would like her and see her as a sweet girl. Hearing that made her cheeks turn red. It was the first time a guy had ever said something like that to her. That night, Lux found himself thinking about the tragedy from 5 years ago, but unfortunately, he still couldn't remember the details. Suddenly, a tremor shook the area from beneath the ocean. R'lyeh and the other students saw it. A giant fish-shaped structure surfaced from the seafloor. R'lyeh explained that it was one of the ruins, and she would soon reveal the true purpose of their training. 9 years ago at the Royal Palace, Lux's friends accidentally knocked over a statue. To avoid getting in trouble, they blamed Filthy. Not wanting to see her being scolded, Lux stepped in and took the blame, even though he wasn't responsible either. After that, Filthy thanked Lux for standing up for her, knowing full well it wasn't his fault. She then pulled a biscuit from her pocket and fed it to Lux. Since that moment, she started calling him Luchan, and he began calling her Fichan. That memory from 9 years ago remained vivid for Filthy. One day, as she was gazing out the window of the inn, Lux knocked on her door and called out to her. He asked if she was feeling better. Filthy assured him she was fine and said she would join the investigation of the ruins the next day. Lux gently reminded her not to push herself too hard, mentioning that he had heard from R'lyeh that Filthy had fainted the day before. She thanked him for being concerned. A little while later, Lisha came by and asked Lux to go with her for a moment. She had something she wanted to ask. She brought him to the workshop and explained a new ability in her drag machine called Over Limit. It was a technique that allowed someone to operate the drag machine beyond its usual limits, enabling them to input a release code. However, she warned Lux not to try it under any circumstances, as it could potentially be fatal. Lux was shocked, wondering why such a dangerous feature was necessary. Lisha explained that it was a precaution just in case Ragnarok ever appeared again. Still, she was confident things would be fine, since the Ragnarok and the ruins they were heading to had already been defeated. Despite this, Aery seemed to have a bad feeling about it. The next morning, everyone got ready for the ruins investigation. R'lyeh mentioned that because the Ragnarok had been taken down, there was a possibility that the gate to the deeper parts of the ruins had opened. She also noted that Aery would be joining the investigation, since the area was quite vast. R'lyeh asked Aery to explain how they would enter the ruins. Aery explained that based on the investigation results, an ancient script located in the center of the ruins could transport them inside when a beam of light appeared after a certain amount of time. Lux, still worried about Filthy, reminded her to let him know immediately if she started feeling unwell, even just a little. Filthy smiled and told him he was always so kind to her. Suddenly, Aery spoke up and said she wanted Lux to protect her too. As they gathered at the entrance of the ruins, R'lyeh checked in with Filthy, asking if she was sure she was okay, especially since it had been a while since she last operated her drag machine. Once inside, R'lyeh asked Noct if everything seemed stable. Noct replied that they needed to wait a bit longer to monitor the Abyss reaction in their bodies. Aerie explained that according to the documents, the ruins had 11 underground floors, and they were currently on the first. R'lyeh encouraged everyone to get started, and the group began descending the ruins floor by floor. On the second floor, Lisha reminded everyone to stay alert. There could be traps or abyss monsters lurking around. Shortly after, Aerie suddenly told them all to stop. They had reached an area where vegetation could grow, similar to a forest, and it appeared to have its own unique ecosystem. Cruel Chiefur speculated that a major battle might have occurred there in the past. It seemed the machine that had been maintaining the ecosystem had stopped functioning. Lisha then asked Noct if she had detected any enemies nearby. Noct said she hadn't seen anything, despite having already expanded the enemy detection range earlier. R'lyeh instructed everyone to split up and start investigating. Aerie began assigning roles. Cruel Chiefur was to investigate the fourth floor, Tilfer the fifth, and Lux the sixth. Celestia requested to accompany Lux to the sixth floor, but Aerie declined. She wanted Celestia to handle the third floor on her own, confident that she was capable enough. Although a bit reluctant, Celestia accepted the assignment. She wondered why she was always sent out alone, but admitted it made sense. She was the most experienced one there. Lux then offered for her to walk halfway with his unit. Surprised, Celestia asked if that would really be okay. Lux actually felt happy that they had managed to combine their strengths halfway through. Hearing this, Celestia also felt pleased. She thought Lux was definitely a dependable guy. She became very enthusiastic, which surprised Noct as it was the first time she had ever seen Celestia so fired up during a mission. While Lux was investigating together with Aerie and Noct, Aerie reminded him not to touch Noct since there was no one else around. Lux was confused why everyone always seemed to think of him as some kind of pervert. Noct told Aerie not to worry, explaining that from the beginning, Lux never even saw her as a girl, something that disappointed her a bit. Lux denied it, saying that he actually thought Noct was cute. Hearing that, Noct asked which part of her body Lux found attractive. Embarrassed, Lux mentioned the line of her collarbone. Noct had a feeling he would say that. Suddenly, Noct asked them to stop because she had detected something. She said it looked like a human was buried under rubble about 100 meters ahead. Lux immediately went to check. He found an unconscious girl trapped beneath the debris. Aerie was shocked by the sight. Not long after, Cruel Chiefur arrived, having heard from the others that Lux had discovered something. Aerie didn't recognize the girl under the rubble, but assumed Cruel Chiefur might know something since she had seen these ruins before. Cruel Chiefur asked Noct and Aerie to join Lisha's unit because it might become dangerous for them if they stayed. She and Lux would investigate the girl, but it would be difficult to protect Aerie and Noct if a fight broke out. Understanding the situation, Aerie and Noct left to rejoin Lisha. Cruel Chiefur was certain the girl wasn't human, but she wasn't an abyss either. Cruel Chiefur gently touched the girl's face, and suddenly, the girl opened her eyes and stated that vital administration response had been confirmed. Then she stood up. Lux and Cruel Chiefur were both stunned. They stared silently at the girl's face. The girl looked confused and was about to go back to sleep, saying that there had been no command or request from either of them. Cruel Chiefur asked why she was lying down again. The girl said she didn't want to cause a misunderstanding, but she had no memory of this particular encounter. She even hoped Cruel Chiefur could prepare a program. She referred to Cruel Chiefur as Administrator, which left Cruel Chiefur puzzled. Cruel Chiefur asked for her name. The girl apologized and introduced herself as Cruche, the caretaker of the ruins. She assumed Cruel Chiefur already knew that the caretaker was in a humanoid form. Cruche explained that she was basically the same as a robot. Cruel Chiefur asked if Cruche knew everything about the ancient era, but Cruche struggled to recall the past, saying she had spent most of her time asleep and had forgotten nearly everything. Both Lux and Cruel Chiefur were skeptical. Cruche then explained that there might have been an accident she wasn't aware of, which erased all of her data. She begged Cruel Chiefur not to leave her behind. Cruel Chiefur assured her that she wouldn't do that. Cruche confirmed that Cruel Chiefur had been identified as an administrator, which meant from that moment on, she would act based on Cruel Chiefur's instructions and requests. She added that as long as her core unit was intact, she would try to reconnect with the central system, including her memory and support functions. Cruel Chiefur asked if that meant most of the ruined systems were currently shut down. Cruche praised Cruel Chiefur, calling her both smart and beautiful. Cruel Chiefur gently patted her head and asked what they needed to do to restore the system. Cruche said that Cruel Chiefur could issue a system recovery command after confirming her identity as the administrator in the control room. Lux suggested they go tell the others. Cruche looked genuinely happy to meet so many people. Tilfer and Celestia commented that Cruche looked adorable, like a doll. Cruel Chieffer explained to Lisha and Rayleigh that Crucier was actually a doll created using ancient technology. At that moment, Lux noticed Filthy standing alone and was about to approach her, but Cruel Chieffer got to him first. She admitted that she was curious about how Crucier had called her administrator, and she wondered if there was an even higher existence, a creator. Cruel Chieffer believed there might be someone with greater authority than herself. Rayleigh asked Aerie to give a further explanation. Aerie said they were currently on the 7th floor, which was known as the production area, and she asked each unit to conduct a thorough investigation. Lux walked over to Filthy, who seemed unwell. He suspected she was pushing herself too hard, but Filthy said she was fine. Still, Lux invited her to come along with him. In the capital city of the kingdom of Atismata, the nobles were holding a meeting to discuss how to deal with a man who had escaped from prison and was now attempting to attack them alongside the rebel soldier agreed. Not many nobles from the capital were willing to lend their support, especially since their powerful drag rides were in short supply. One of them suggested using the students from the academy, particularly because Celestia, the daughter of a noble, was also attending that school. Celestia's father strongly opposed the idea. He couldn't bear the thought of putting his own daughter in danger right in front of his eyes. He then mentioned hearing rumors about a student from the academy who had defeated a Ragnarok. That student's name was Lux Arcadia, and they also knew that Lux had a close relationship with Princess Lisha. The queen then asked where they had heard that name. The nobles turned to her for guidance, expressing their wish to have Lux work for the kingdom of Atismata in the near future. The queen asked for some time to consider their proposal. Meanwhile, Filthy apologized to Lux for causing him trouble, even though she had initially intended to be with her unit, which included Aerie. At the time, they were conducting an investigation alongside Tilfer and Rayleigh. They arrived at a production facility filled with large tubes. Rayleigh explained that this might be the place where the Abyss were created. Suddenly, Filthy clutched her head in pain and warned them that something was coming. Just then, Haze blew a whistle, signaling the release of the Abyss. The sharp sound reached Lisha and her group. Crucier even panicked out of fear. Lux quickly moved to check the source of the noise, but Filthy stopped him, warning it was dangerous. Her concern was valid. An Abyss suddenly appeared and attacked Lux. The creature then turned toward Tilfer, preparing to strike, but Lux rushed in and saved her just in time. The Abyss bit Lux, and he immediately recognized it. It was the same type he had encountered at the 6th ruin. Not long after, Cruel Chieffer contacted Lux, asking about his condition. Lux told her he had just been attacked by an Abyss. Cruel Chieffer suspected it was a Diabolus class Abyss and shared some information from Crucier. When a ruin enters a state of alert, 3 Abyss are released. 2 roam far from the ruin and 1 remains inside. These creatures are programmed to attack any nearby life forms. Lux asked Rayleigh to stop the investigation, but she refused. He was puzzled, especially since the ruin was already in an alert state. However, Rayleigh argued that the current situation was still manageable, and since they had already reached the 7th floor, turning back now would mean losing valuable time. Lux reminded her how dangerous things were, but Rayleigh insisted they push forward. Suddenly, Filthy activated her drag ride and dashed off to protect the civilians around the island. Lux decided to follow her. Before he left, Rayleigh asked Lux to keep Filthy safe, and Lux instructed Tilfer to stay and look after Rayleigh. Then he switched his drag ride to Bahamut and set off after Filthy, asking if she was alright. Filthy explained that she could sense an Abyss nearby and believed one would soon appear in the area. Lux asked if she had ever been to this island before, but before she could respond, a blinding light flashed. Lux was suddenly transported to a different dimension. There, an Abyss attacked him again. The place triggered something in Lux's memory. The Abyss landed a hit on Filthy, throwing her down. Lux quickly gathered his strength, unleashed his power, and destroyed the Abyss in an explosion. Then he went down to look for Filthy, feeling like the place was oddly familiar. It turned out to be one of the old human weapon research facilities from the era of the Arcadia Empire. Lux remembered coming there 5 years ago, and a memory of Filthy as a child resurfaced. Eventually, he found Filthy, who was visibly weak. Lux tried to carry her to a training shelter because her fever was dangerously high, but Filthy refused. She insisted that there was still an Abyss nearby. Lux gently calmed her down, promising that he would take care of the Abyss using his power. Filthy warned him that the creature was truly there. Suddenly, she grabbed Lux by the neck and began choking him. He was confused and couldn't understand why she was doing this. Filthy then opened her eyes, revealing a sinister grin as she watched Lux struggling in pain. 9 years ago, Lux once told Filthy that he would try to build a city where she and her family could live peacefully. Filthy immediately ran up to Lux and kissed him, calling it a lucky charm, meaning she hoped they would meet again someday. At that moment, she unknowingly choked Lux's neck and passed out shortly after. Suddenly, Haze showed up and approached Lux. Meanwhile, Lisha and Cruel Chieffer had successfully defeated the Abyss. Lisha said that something felt off from the moment they arrived at the training site to everything that had happened since. Cruel Chieffer was impressed because she hadn't expected Lisha to be thinking about anything else beyond her drag ride and looks. Lisha got annoyed, thinking Cruel Chieffer was making fun of her. Aerie contacted them to check if they were alright. She informed them that the drag rides belonging to Chalice and Tilfer were too damaged to be used in battle anymore. She also reported that she had discovered the door to the deepest part of the ruins. However, Cruciate pointed out that a key was needed to open the door. Aerie then asked what kind of key it was. Cruel Chieffer suggested they all leave the room for now. Back with Lux, he asked Haze why she was there. Haze revealed that if Lux killed her, Filthy would die as well. Lux didn't understand what she meant at first. Haze explained that she had implanted a Ragnarok seed inside Filthy's body. The part of her body where the seed was placed would gradually be consumed by parasites and eventually turn into an abyss. After that, Filthy wouldn't be able to resist Ragnarok's commands just like a slave. Haze suspected that Filthy had been trying to resist those commands, which explained her recent fevers and dizziness. Haze had ordered Ragnarok to kill Lux, and if Filthy kept resisting that command, she would suffer unbearable pain, as if she were in hell, and eventually be reduced to ashes. Haze then tried to strike a deal with Lux. Afterward, Lux took Filthy to the inn. He couldn't stop thinking about what Haze had said, that if things continued as they were, Filthy would die in just a few days. Haze had offered to command Ragnarok to save her, but only if Lux agreed to open the sealed door deep within the ruins. That door required a key, and Haze wanted Lux to use it. She gave him 2 days to think it over. Before Haze left, Lux asked who she really was. Haze pointed out that she had the same hair color as Lux and Fuil, but insisted that she was the original, unlike them. That night, Lux was overwhelmed and didn't know what to do. Filthy suddenly woke up and said she felt hungry. Lux helped feed her, and he noticed that she didn't remember anything from the previous day. She asked if she had caused any trouble, but Lux brushed it off. He looked into her eyes, which seemed different now. When he stepped out of her room, memories from the past came flooding back. Lux regretted not saving her back then. Relia saw Lux and invited him to talk about Filthy. Lux said that he remembered everything now, that their meeting at the academy wasn't actually the first in 7 years. The last time they saw each other had been 5 years ago on that very island. Relia also recalled how Lux had saved Filthy when she was about to be used in human experiments by the Arcadia Empire, but Filthy had already died. Lux couldn't believe it. Relia told him that Filthy had come back to life even stronger than before. Relia had also realized that her younger sister had turned into an abyss shortly after she became the headmistress at the academy. Relia believed that there might still be a way to save Filthy using knowledge from the ruins, and that she needed to go inside them herself. Lux asked if that was why Relia had brought Cruel Chieffer and the others to the island. Relia admitted that they were running out of time. No matter what it took, they had to get into the deepest part of the ruins and find a way to save Filthy, even if it cost Relia her own life. When they were little, Filthy once followed Lux to visit his mother's grave. Lux didn't understand why she did that and asked her to leave him alone. But Filthy hugged him. She did it to cheer him up, just like his mother used to. Lux cried in her arms. At present, Lux seemed lost in thought as he remembered that moment from his childhood. Lisha called his name several times, puzzled about why he was zoning out when she was in the middle of repairing his Bahamut. Lux apologized and asked if the repairs were finished. Lisha told him that he could now use his over-limit mode again since she had adjusted the disarming code. She immediately requested permission from the headmistress. In truth, Aerie had hoped Lux wouldn't use the over-limit mode again. Suddenly, Fuvial contacted Lux. Caught off guard, Lux asked where he was. Fuvial asked if the sound of Haze's horn whistle had been deafening. Lux questioned how Fuvial knew about that. Fuvial then explained that if Lux wanted to save Filthy, he had to destroy the horn whistle and defeat the Ragnarok, which was the core of the seed. After that, Lux went to see Filthy. Seeing her standing near the window, he gently asked her to get some rest. Filthy told him that she already knew there was an abyss inside her, but she wasn't bothered by it. After her mother passed away, Relia looked so lonely that Filthy felt she had to keep living. She also knew that Lux had felt alone. Things had gotten better because he had found people he cared about. She said she felt at peace as long as Lux and Relia were nearby. Filthy believed that Lux had grown stronger than before, so she was confident everything would be alright. Lux denied it, admitting he had always been weak. He confessed that the only reason he had been able to fight until now was because Filthy had been there for him that day. Lux hugged her tightly and begged her not to die, promising that he would save her no matter what. Filthy said he hadn't changed at all, and she thanked him. Meanwhile, Crucia was excited that Lux and the others had returned to the labyrinth. Celestia asked what kind of key they needed to keep moving forward, but Crucia admitted she couldn't tell them. Hearing this, Lisha told everyone to stand back because she would use the seventh head to destroy the door. Crucia panicked at the idea. Then Crucifer calmly stepped toward the door and placed her hand on it. It opened instantly. R'lyeh couldn't believe how easily it opened. Crucifer explained that when she first met Crucia, she was accidentally recognized as the master. Noct praised her, saying Crucifer was impressive. Unlike Princess Lisha, who tended to be forceful, they continued their investigation. Deep inside, they reached a place that didn't seem to store old documents about drag rides. R'lyeh began to worry that they might have made a mistake, but Crucia assured them they hadn't. She explained that she had remembered everything by that point and knew she couldn't leave them behind. She had to eliminate them all, as they were relatives of the family that had betrayed her master. Crucifer was shocked, and Lux had no idea what was going on. Not long after, Hazi appeared. She mocked Lux and the others, saying they had walked right into her plan like fools, making things easy for her. At that moment, Crucia was with Filthy, which confused R'lyeh. She didn't understand why Filthy was there. Haze explained that if she gave Filthy a direct order, she would follow it without resistance. Then Haze blew the horn whistle, and Filthy instantly activated her drag ride. Haze immediately ordered Lux and the others to be killed. In response, Lux and his friends activated their drag rides. Noct asked Ayuri and R'lyeh to move away from the fight. Crucia launched an unmanned drag ride to attack them, and it quickly went after Lux at incredible speed. Lux suspected the drag ride was using over limit. Celestia rushed in to help him, but Filthy suddenly attacked her, knocking her down. Lisha tried to use her power, but Filthy neutralized it with her missing face attack. Crucia activated Wise Blood, but Filthy quickly stopped her too. It seemed Filthy was using a unique ability from her drag ride, and in no time she bound Lisha and threw her toward Crucifer. R'lyeh warned everyone to be careful, explaining that Filthy's special ability disabled the unique powers of other drag rides. Meanwhile, Haze was about to complete her mission of placing the Ragnarok core when Fubiel suddenly appeared, commenting that Haze's plan seemed way too flashy. Haze asked why he had shown up there. Fubiel replied that he came to observe the noble activities taking place. With a mocking tone, Haze asked if Fubiel was really there just to witness his little brother's final moments. Suddenly, the sound of a horn whistle rang out. Haze turned toward the source and saw Ayuri blowing her horn whistle. She immediately blew her own, but Filthy stopped her just in time. Ayuri explained that the orders Haze gave to the Abyss and Ragnarok would weaken after a certain amount of time. Realizing what had happened, Haze understood that Ayuri had overridden her command. By then, Lux had already managed to defeat the unmanned drag ride. They told Haze to surrender, warning her that this would be her final chance for mercy. But she just mocked them, saying they still hadn't realized that they were the ones truly trapped. Not long after, Ragnarok appeared before them. Celestia called on Lisha to attack together, and the two immediately launched their assault. Lisha thought she had defeated the Ragnarok, but Crucifer noticed something strange about it. He warned everyone to fall back. Suddenly, Ragnarok's tentacles extended and started attacking wildly. Haze explained that Ragnarok's power was rapid regeneration, and the more damage it took in battle, the stronger it became. Lisha got cornered under the continuous attacks. Lux stepped in to help and asked her for permission to use his overlimit. She hesitated, warning him it was too dangerous, especially since he had already pushed himself beyond his limits. She begged him not to force it, but Lux insisted. He didn't want to regret not doing everything he could. Reluctantly, Lisha agreed and began transmitting the disarming code from Tiamat. She asked Lux to hold out for one more minute while she processed the command. In that moment, she hoped Lux would come back safely afterward. Earlier, Fubiel had asked if Lux truly wanted to save Filthy. He said that nothing had really changed after Lux saved her and claimed Lux was incapable of protecting anyone or shaping the future worth having. Despite that, Lux launched his end-action attack on Ragnarok, but it only made the creature stronger. Fubiel's words echoed in his mind, calling him foolish and unchanging. Ragnarok's tentacles continued to trap him. Haze was convinced that the pathetic prince was finished. She planned to round up all of Lux's beloved friends, kill them, and destroy the kingdom of Atismata, blaming Lux for it all. Just then, Filthy spoke up. She told Haze she was wrong. She knew how hard Lux had tried to change the country, even if it meant getting hurt in the process. She knew everything he had gone through. Soon after, Leisha tried to contact Lux and transmitted the method to release the drag ride's limiter. She encouraged him to use his over-limit. Filthy kept cheering him on, refusing to let him give up. Motivated by their support, Lux activated his over-limit and revealed the true form of Bahamut. Seeing this, Haze began to panic and ordered Ragnarok to kill Lux. But Lux went straight for the core and destroyed it, taking down the entire room with it. Haze couldn't understand how her Ragnarok had lost. Fubil told Haze to surrender and retreat. He said she would never be able to defeat Lux, not with precision, and not even with a reinforced Ragnarok. According to Fubil, Lux was both weak and terrifying, a paradox she couldn't handle. Seeing the ruins completely destroyed, Crucia got scared and promptly went back to sleep. After that battle, Lux took some time to rest and recover at the inn. Filthy stayed by his side the whole time, sitting on the edge of the bed. Lux pointed out that she was sitting a little too close to him, but Filthy replied that it was because she was in charge of taking care of him. Lux asked if she was feeling okay at that moment. Filthy said that as long as she could take it easy, she would be just fine. She shared that she had already gotten used to the sound of the whistle, so it didn't bother her anymore. She also said she felt alright because Lux had kept his promise. Filthy then gently hugged Lux and thanked him, expressing that she truly loved him.